Gotcha. All right. Well, hello. We're live now.
Hello.
Um, Good to see you again. And it sounds like you think I'm a dumb, useful American, useful idiot American who is anti-ethnostate for all the wrong reasons. So I want you to
Uh,
educate
that's a
me.
bit of a that's a dramatic description, okay? Also, hello, hello. It's been like I think quite a bit since we talked like in actual person, no, on camera.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
We
it's
were on like a panel together, but or an event together, but separate panels. But yeah, since the last time we talked, I want to say it was when
week
we were
thing, I think,
watching.
yeah.
Yeah,
Temple stuff, yeah.
yeah. The Tim Pool thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a while. Haven't seen your hat in a bit, and still pretty fabulous, I must say.
Thank
Like
you.
I don't know, you kind of pull this head off. Like, how do you do that? I
Oh,
could
thank you.
never.
Hey, look, if you, what did Goebbels say? If you lie enough, then people start to believe it. If you wear it enough and act like it looks good, then people will start thinking it looks good. So it sounds like it's working.
Who said what? Can you pronounce his name again so I can
Goebbels?
laugh at you?
Goebbels?
I adore this pronunciation, girl boss. Essentially, you basically girl bossing at me. It's
Oh, Goebbels, a
Hebels
girl
or
boss? Yeah,
Hebels.
Joseph
Yeah, yeah,
Girlboss? Yes.
there's no girl boss. He's like girl. I mean, you can say he did a bit of girl bossing. I guess
Wait.
you
Are
could
you
say that. Yeah.
German splaining to me right now? Wait, how do you pronounce it?
Yes. We say Hebels. They say just Goebbels, Hebels. Like
You know I
they
speak
didn't say.
German, right?
I studied it at school, but no, not really.
No,
Like,
I
yeah,
speak German. I lived there for
oh, you do?
years. Yeah. It's
Oh,
Goebbels.
may
Goebbels.
Goebbels, yeah,
Yeah.
but not girl boss.
Okay.
Goebbels,
All right.
Goebbels. There's no girl boss in there.
I'm gonna start
Yeah,
calling him
yeah.
Girl Boss.
I did like know a bit, but like it's been a long time, and I didn't really use it much, so it's kind of like out of my head. I know too many languages, okay, to keep the Germans. I'm sorry to
Okay.
the Germans
Well, look,
out
Germans
there.
in the comments, you can say who girl boss better.
Goebbels, Goebbels. You say girl boss in English. I don't know why. Or sometimes Goebbels, people say like Goebbels. Like
Oh yeah,
that. I don't know. I don't know what's
if they're
happening there.
gargling or
Anyway,
something. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
speaking of
Point is,
Nazis, let's talk
speaking
about
of.
ethnostates.
Okay. So my kind of subject, I will say, dude, it's been 2,000 years since I have a beef with you. Like, essentially, when I got mad at you, you were speaking with Destiny. It's been so long
Yes.
that I will not pretend that I remember exactly what you said. Okay, it will
Yeah. I
be
mean,
dishonest.
I
Yeah.
I
So
don't want to
yeah.
dishonestly frame it, but let me try to refresh everyone's memory, which
Uh-huh.
was we were talking about Israel at some point, and I said I don't care about like the Zionist project insofar as like, okay, sure, you want to have a place to protect the Jewish people because they get persecuted everywhere, but if your state requires you to ethnically police like people coming in and out to maintain some sort of ethnic majority, then I don't think this is good. And something along those
Yeah.
lines. So if that
Yeah,
refreshes your
something like
memory.
that. It's something like that. I do remember. That was basically came off to me as like as this very maximalist position of like ethno-state kind of bad, like overall. Like not that like you're like super duper like fucking kill them all ethnostaters, but you're like pretty like generally you
Yeah.
don't like it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just to
and you
clarify,
don't.
my position is like
Yeah,
morally, I don't think
yeah,
there's good justifications
morally,
for
exactly.
most
That's what.
ethnostates. Period. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of why I even wanted to talk about because it came off as like about the moral subject, right? And I
Yeah.
even wrote down the points, but I don't know where they are. So it's
Okay. So
you're
there's
not
just some
getting them.
piece of paper floating around in your house about the
Yeah,
soy
yeah.
pill and
About that
ethnostates.
says
Okay.
yes. So my kind of like beef with this, as I remember it, was there was one phrase that fucking triggered me, but I don't remember exactly. So let's drop it for now. Maybe
Okay.
you will say it again. Who
Oh yeah,
knows?
probably. I have a
But
very limited
yeah,
vocabulary.
yeah. I mean, problem is that I have two kind of like gripes with the subject. I don't really want to make it particularly about Israel because fucking Israel, I don't want to talk about it, but like if we have to we will, but there are
Sure.
two things, right? So one thing is I have a gripe with two things with Americans, with the definition of the ethnostate, essentially. So what they understand as an ethnostate, right?
Hmm.
Because it's completely different here. And I have two working definitions, basically, that I hear people in the West make, and I hear people outside of the West make, right?
Okay.
So we can talk about like yours, like which one do you even like agree with? Which one is yours, right? Well, maybe you have your own sort of idea about it. Who knows at this days, at this time and age, everyone has their own ideas. Okay, so that's one thing, and I don't think that one definition applies to Israel, and another definition I think applies to Israel, but it applies to literally everyone.
Okay.
So besides, yeah, so that's kind of like my thing. And the second thing is the moral thing, if we have time to talk about it, because I do think that it's a very blanket statement to say that all ethnostates are immoral. And it's very, in my opinion, not to trigger anyone, it's a very privileged American talking point. So I would like to like address it from that perspective, why I think it's a little bit like close-minded due to the maybe perspective you have as an American on it. So those are two things I would talk about.
Yeah, we should have time for both. So yeah, let's get into it. This is fun. I get to choose my favorite definition of ethnostate here.
Basically, yeah. So it's kind of not even like about you. It's just in the general, to be honest. I hear that quite a bit of people, quite a lot of Americans, in particular Westerners, bring this up. So it's not like even like I'm like singling you out in that sense, like everyone's singling out Israel. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a gripe, right? Because
yes, I'm the surrogate for all the dumb Americans, the dumb ignorant Americans. I'll take it.
Yeah, kind.
I've traveled to Europe. I'm used to it. Okay.
You are representative right now.
Yeah.
The ambassador, if you will. So yeah, that's his, so the thing is with ethnostate, to make it like super simple, right? What we typically think when we hear that word is that is a country that operates as a state based of the shared ethno-religious language and cultural principle, and it is concerned with the preserving of the hegemony of that certain political or that certain ethno-religious group, right? So
okay. This is like definition one then. So it's like there's some sort of broad, like cultural unity, whether that's language or like
typically
shared
it's like
tradition,
ethno-religious, typically, right? So it's like ethnicity and religious kind of like tie down together. Not so much in the modern times, but like typically it's like depends where though. If it's in the Middle East, then it does tie down, obviously. But in Europe, it's not as much. But still, majority people would be like Catholic or like Christian, like Orthodox or whatever the fuck, right? So you have like this ethnic majority, and you have a religious majority typically, and language and culture that is preserved in there, and the state is sort of built around this. Okay. So the unifying principle is this shared identity, if you will, right? And this state typically is very concerned with the preservation of that, right? Sure. So that keeps being the hegemony, that keeps being the majority, right? And that's the broad thing. So the problem I have with this definition is that if that's the definition you use, then it's everyone.
Yeah.
It's Poland, it's fucking Sweden, it's really any country. It's Ukraine, it's countries in Korea, Japan, it's every Arab country, basically. It's almost every country except New World countries, which would be based on a completely different principle, like United States, right? It's a civic nationalist principle. You have a nation, you don't have a ethnicity that shows you as an American. You didn't even have the language, I think, official language that much until like Trump declared it, I think, English or some shit.
But correct me if I'm wrong, like would you say like pre the massive immigration changes like in the 60s and 70s that like all the neo-Nazis get really upset about, like would you say that we would be closer to that definition where you have more of a Christian majority nation, you have more of a white majority nation, and it kind of has moved away from that since then to a much higher degree?
That's very American talking point, because we wouldn't say that French, German, Irish,
right, it's
and English are same
it's all
people.
The same thing. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yes, so it's not the same ethnicity, it's not the same language, it's not the same culture,
gotcha. Okay.
not the same. Yeah, so that's kind of like even not the same religion in some cases, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like the shared identity that when established in the United States and the New World countries, right? The ethnicity wasn't the unifying principle. You escaped actually your own countries mostly, right? Your own homelands, and turned to settle in a completely different space altogether, with a quite unfortunate nuking basically everyone there to do it, but that's a whole other situation, right?
Sure.
So you established yourselves there, and then you created a national identity. This like badass Reagan speech comes to mind, like everyone can be American, but no, everyone can be German. And it's true, it's true. And it's cool. I mean, used to be cool, I guess. I don't know if Americans think it's cool now, but yeah, used to be cool.
We're still
Anyway,
number one, okay?
That's number one, yeah. So that's kind of like makes it impossible to demonize Israel on that principle, because then you have to fucking demonize every other country that isn't
Right.
basically New World countries, and maybe India. Okay, I think India doesn't have like have such a big diversity in terms of like ethnic groups there, religion. I don't think one is like even primarily one, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken.
Well, yeah, it's
but
super diverse. They have all these different languages. The primary is like,
yeah,
Hindi and in English actually to an extent. But yeah,
because of the colony. Yeah,
I know what you mean.
But does come to mind, the only country. But primarily, I think about New World countries. So like Canada, America, or Australia, whatever.
But yeah, I'm in
so
alignment
anyway.
here. It is too vague to just say, oh, you have a shared culture and language and that sort of thing. Yeah.
I mean, you can do that, and you can say, for example, "Hey, mine is based," right? I think like the American version is based. Obviously, that's I don't want to argue that. That's opinion, right? But at the end of the day, like it's just weird to demonize particularly Israel, because then you are rating that everyone is allowed except the Jews. That's kind of like me. It goes into the uncomfortable zone real fast.
If you're being that
opinion.
vague and it's like, why are you only specifically calling this one out as an ethnostate? Then it's like, yeah, I agree with this. Okay, so what's the second one then?
That's kind of how we use it, by the way. So in that sense, if some people here, I mean,
okay.
So if people would say like something
Ukrainian?
yeah. I mean, not ethnically, but nationally.
Oh, you're actually not?
No, I mean, not really. I have I'm mostly Greek, and I also have Russian and Polish. So
hold on,
there you go.
If you're Greek, Russian, and Polish, and you define yourself as Ukrainian,
but nationalist principle. Yeah.
On a nationalist principle, it's like it's not really like this ethnic, like I guess we'll get into this. So what we're talking about, like, is Ukraine like considered like this ethno-state in the same definition that we're going to use, and like whether or not that's good or bad. But it's like, it sounds like you're
a disclaimer, I'm not actually an ethnostate big guy. I'm like civic nationalist. I enjoy my civic nationalism, okay? So I'm not arguing for everyone to be like super rigid for the ethnic principle, right? Because, for example, I am not ethnically Ukrainian, but I was born here. I have a Ukrainian, citizenship, and I am Ukrainian in the national sense, right? But if I would speak about like ethnicity, blood, all of that, DNA, who my parents are, then I'm not. So
right, yeah, and just this is a comment. We don't have to dig into this yet, but like what you just described, which is you not being ethnically Ukrainian, but being able to come to Ukraine, be a nationalist for Ukraine, make your entire identity and career about protecting and serving this country. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But like as a child of immigrants, right? It sounds like no. Or you're the child of immigrants, of Albanian and Greek immigrants?
It's a bit no Albanians, but it's a bit complicated because like basically in the Soviet Union, everyone who was like occupied by Soviet Russia, they were like all made part of the one big thing.
Right.
So technically, my parents kind of like moved from Georgia, that was under Soviet Union. But it was Georgia before it was under Soviet Union, and that was Georgia now after the Soviet Union dissolvement. So technically, they moved to Ukraine from Georgia, but at the time,
it was all the same place at the time.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
well, what I'm saying is like what I'm principally opposed to, like the whole reason I was saying what I was saying in that conversation, is that it seems to me that people would use this justification of like shared culture, shared ethnicity, shared language to say, people like your parents can't move into this place because they're not the original thing. We need to restrict the amount of those people that can come in, even though you're a clear demonstration that at best these people can become even more nationalist than some of the people born here, and like still support the project of the country and the culture and like all of that. So that's what I'm like principally opposed to, in case that wasn't clear. But let's
so
go.
This brings us to the second definition, because you very smoothly brought us into that subject, right? So I found like one of my notes on my phone, which is kind of funny because I actually wrote it down on paper with like a granny. But so basically, right? The second definition that is way less broad in terms of like more. Let me find which one I am actually doing here.
Yeah.
So we can see it, because I think I write it down. The one I remembered Yeah, the other one would be basically that. This one is a bit more demonized. I feel like it's kind of like nationalism in the United States is used pretty like negatively typically. The state where citizenship rights and political power is restricted to one ethnic group.
Okay.
So basically, this is another version of ethnostate that I found a lot of people use, right? So not
Sure.
only it's the nation that is the state that is interested in preserving the hegemony and makes certain policies to preserve that hegemony. This state is restricting the rights, the ability to be in the positions of power, to be like in the parliament or like government, whatever it is in the country, right? To a particular ethnic group, and minority ethnic groups don't really have that many rights or protections that apply to them as the one that apply to the big ethnic group, right? So that's kind of like how also a lot of countries function till this day, and it's also how most empires functioned, right? So great example would be like Ottoman Empire, for example. It's a huge fucking thing, right? It conquered a bunch of people, Arabs, Turks, they're Armenians, Greeks, blah, 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 all sorts of people, different religions, different ethnicities. Only Turks had the absolute privilege there, right? So every other group was subjugated, wasn't allowed to be represented in any like leadership positions, have to pay completely different set of how it's called, money you have to pay to the government,
Taxes.
yeah, basically. Basically, yeah. So they have a completely different set of rules, what was allowed to do, what to position, that's what basically that, right? And in modern countries you see that, obviously you see that in the Arab countries, for example, quite a bit of them have the rule that, for example, you cannot be governed by not Muslim guy, right, in your country. It's not possible,
and so it's
right?
a spectrum too, right? Because like in America, technically, the president can't be a non-citizen, but this is not restricted to that ethnicity. Like there's no American ethnicity. It's just like, hey, you should have been born here, sort of thing.
Yeah, although I highly doubt that people would be jamming with non-Christian fucking president in the United States, but probably not on law, right? Not on like actual. I don't think there's a law, right, in the United States that says that non-Christian guy cannot be a president of the United States.
Yeah. Real quick, I got a super chat from Prince of Salatus. Thank you for the 5. And do you agree that Crimea belongs to Kazakhstan?
Kazakhstan? No, absolutely not. Yeah, to Tatari, Crimean Tatari, the indigenous population of Crimea. Yeah, I would agree with that. So
no, I think he's joking because it's like the whole like, oh, Crimea belongs to Russia. And it's just picked a random country nearby. And it's like, actually, you know what? It's Kazakhstani. It's Kyrgyzstani.
My guy. Actually, I would rather them than Russians, if we are honest.
No.
Yeah. So yeah, if you play that game, sorry, what I was talking about. Oh, but yeah. So by that restrictive definition, doesn't apply to Israel either. Because, well, rather, the first one applies, but it applies to everyone else as well. But this one doesn't apply because, first of all, I'm not super educated, okay? But as far as I am aware, that in Israel, there are 2 million Arabs, and those have the exact same rights as Jewish Israelis.
Yeah,
like
I'm also not super educated, so I won't speak on authority. My understanding is there's definitely like, second-class citizen type stuff in settler territory, like West Bank
that's
area.
Thing. That's occupation. Yeah, I'm not talking about that.
But in the country itself, I think there are like biases. I don't know if there are like specific laws in the book.
But not on the laws. Biases will be always there. Okay, it's inevitable. When there is a big majority population, it's really inevitable. But I'm talking about
grain of
the
salt.
laws.
I haven't looked into this recently. But what I was going to say, what I wanted to bring up, because like this is a spectrum, right? Like you would say, even by the second definition, America was never really an ethnostate, right?
No,
like there's not even like an ethnicity to protect at that point, and like saying white is so America centric. But I would say something like the Chinese Exclusion Act, where it's like, hey, we are limiting specifically Chinese immigration, even though it's not an ethnostate. This is like an ethnostate kind of policy, and so this is like
discrimination against a particular group. That would be basically, you could call it racist, you could call it a discrimination, but it's not going to be banning migration is not an ethnostate in my opinion.
In and of itself.
In and of itself. Yeah.
Okay, so it
So yeah,
requires it because like the reason for doing so is to protect that ethnic majority. And if it's not that, then it's that's I guess what I'm
yeah,
getting at, where it's
depends.
like,
Depends on the reason. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, okay, maybe they're specifically discriminating against Chinese people, but it's not because they want to protect a majority, it's because they want to discriminate against Chinese, and
Yeah,
these
but
things are
let's
not
yeah,
necessarily linked but could be.
yeah, let's go there in a second. But also one thing about like Israel as well is that not only those Arabs have the exact same citizenship, so that definition just doesn't apply because they have the same rights. They're also represented in the Knesset by 21%, I believe. No, 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 wait, they're 21% of the population, and I think they have 19 or 20 seats. So technically, they are represented pretty accurately in
Okay.
the governing body, which, by the way, America does not have. You have
Uh,
more African American population when you have a percentage of them represented in your Congress. So that's really not the argument.
well,
So
can I
my
ask
whole
this?
thing
Because
is,
again,
yeah,
this is
yeah,
uneducated, but like this is my understanding.
yeah.
Me as a non-Israeli, and also not Arab, just an American Jew, because I have
Oh, you're
Jewish
Jewish.
ethnicity.
I
I
don't know.
am.
I thought you was
Uh,
memeing.
no, no, I really am. I like
Okay, okay.
pretty much a name only, right? Like I don't, which just makes this argument a little sillier to me. I have no
Yeah.
cultural ties. I don't speak Hebrew. You
Mm.
never had a bar mitzvah. It's literally just because my mom is Jewish and my great grandpa was the last one to even remotely do anything close to this. But because of this, I would have an easier time becoming a citizen and acquiring land or having some sort of privileges
Israel. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure. Yeah.
in
Mhm.
Israel. And like this
Yeah.
is like on the law,
Yeah, but
technically
that's
not,
what's
hey,
wrong with that
Arabs are
though?
discriminated against, but I get these privileges by virtue of being the ethnicity
Yeah,
Jewish.
that's fine though. No, what's wrong with that? Like most of my
Well, it's not
neighbors
about
who
saying whether or not
migrated
it's
to.
fine. It's like this is to the point of like, oh well, Arabs aren't discriminated against, like they're equal in the law. It's like, well, not
Yeah,
really. Like someone that is in exactly the same position as me in America, but is I don't know, Saudi Arabian, they would not be able to do this. And so that is like an
yeah, but
example of what I would say is like the
that's
law
not
privileging.
discriminating. No, no, no. That's privileging. That's not discriminating. Okay. So, for example, if a guy in Israel is Arab, he has the exact same rights as a Jewish guy. So, if he didn't, then that would be a restrictive ethnostate by the second definition, right? But just encouraging people from other and giving them privileges from traveling to Israel and getting citizenship just because they're Jews is not really like it's a preserving the hegemony. The first definition, right, was we are preserving the hegemony. So by wanting people of Jewish descent, right, from all over the world to come to Israel and to become citizens of Israel, you are preserving that hegemony, right? It's something
Right.
that they
Well,
actively want to do.
what
But like, why are
are we
we
not?
loading
Do we
that?
count it as discrimination if it's like, okay, some random person with no ties to Israel that is not Jewish in America can't do this? Maybe they never want to. Sure, but like the fact that I can by virtue of nothing but my ethnicity, to me that is at least positive discrimination towards me. And if for some reason this person did want to, and we both went to apply for this, and they would say, no, you are not this ethnicity, to me that is discrimination. That is saying you are not this thing that we
Of
prioritize as
course.
this hegemonic state, as is Jewish state. Therefore, no, we don't want to give you the same privileges. Like, and
Well,
whether or not you
wait a
agree
second.
with that being
If
a
I
good thing is different, but to me that is like a very clear distinction as to who is being prioritized, who is getting more
Yeah, but
rights.
we just agreed that it's at the beginning. I thought that just simply prioritizing and creating conditions for preserving the hegemony without like straight up cleansing people or fucking tossing them somewhere, right, is not really. Uh, it doesn't apply just to Israel. Like you can't just acquire citizenship in most countries easily, right? So, for example,
But is it based on ethnic things, right? Like so, like
yeah, but that
for
project
example,
is I'm Greek. I got Greek passport because I'm Greek.
yeah,
So I traveled to Greece and they were like, based, you're Greek, get your passport. That's it.
yeah,
So
I
what's
understand. So
different
yeah,
with
okay.
that,
So
bro?
if we're talking specifically about acquiring citizenship, sure, um, it would be easier for me to get a German passport because I have a German father and I could get dual citizenship or like
Yeah,
have some sort of like land rights.
exactly.
To I think the extent to which this is different from Israel is, um, not just, hey, you have a parent that was born in this country, right? It's basically ethnically based. So
My father wasn't born in Greece.
he wasn't.
So, nope. So it works the exact same way. You basically have the in Greece, right? There was this big project because a lot of people, similarly to Israel, left Greece due to Turkish, wars and occupations and all that shit. So a lot of people, for example, my family back in a way back, right? They escaped occupation of Turks, and they ran to what was at the time Georgia, Russian Empire at the time, right? And then a lot of people scattered in
Yeah.
Ukraine, in Russia, and all sorts of things. Mostly because they shared similar religion, like Orthodox Christianity, and similar ties. Many people chose to run to Russian Empire at the time, right? So because of that, they started living in those places generationally. Multiple people were born, right, and that completely different part. Then Greece became independent. They are their own country. They also returned a bunch of things, a bunch of territories. Some didn't. Obviously, we have a lot of strife between Turkey and Greece still, but it's a whole other subject, right? And they really wanted to do this to basically stimulate those Greeks, right, who left to return to Greece now. So this is basically the exact same fucking thing because a bunch of Jews left as way fucking back, but they left Israel because of the all the Arab shenanigans. So technically Arab people were at the time were the colonizers, the settlers. Then Arab lived there for so long that now it's stupid to make the fucking to say the Palestinians don't belong there, because obviously they do. They live there for fucking 1,000 fucking years, right? So at this point it's it's a complicated subject. But the same thing here. My father was invited, right, to get a Greek passport essentially, just because he was ethnically Greek.
Yeah, so it had nothing to do with his prior citizenship. It was literally just based on his No, I'm just clarifying. I'm not arguing or anything, but yeah.
100. I'm just explaining. It's exactly the same thing technically. I mean, based of the same logic even. And he went to Greece. By the way, not only he was born in little village in Georgia, but he was also never spoke Greek, because they lived in a part of the that was Turkified. So all of my family spoke Turkish instead of Greek. So he didn't even know the language, but he was still invited, and he traveled there, and he got the passport, and I now also could as his daughter, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because my father was proved to be Greek ethnically and had the lineage, I could also get the passport. Okay. So my mother cannot, by the way. She cannot.
Okay. Even if she's married to him.
Yup. So that's so this is not me even saying what is your take on this. This is me just providing you that that it's not something extremely unique that only Israel does it. So that's kind of why I'm a little bit miffed.
Yeah. Okay. No. So let's make a distinction here. So just the concept of someone being ethnically close to whatever the majority or the historical majority of a country is, allowing them easier access makes sense to me. I don't think this is the only thing that would you would need to require to be an ethnostate. I don't think Germany doing this is well, I'm an ethnostate because I say Germans can have easier access to this in the same way I do. The idea though that it being tied more to the ethnicity for restrictions and acceptance, I think goes a little beyond that for Israel. So correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe we both have to look this up. Do Arab Israelis have the same privileges as someone like me, some American non-Israeli Jew, to have this acceptance back into the country, or no? Sorry, Arab Jews, not Arab Israelis, excuse me.
Yeah, I got confused. Sorry. I believe if you're Jewish, it doesn't really matter. You can be Ashkenazi, you be Mizrahi, which would be Arab, but Jewish, right? I believe I'm not 100% certain, but I never seen anything saying that they are not allowed to return to Israel from other countries, for
Okay.
example, like, I don't know, Lebanon or like some other in the Middle East place, right? It's not just the right of return of European Jews, okay? I don't
Right.
believe that it's the case. I believe if you are Jewish and you can, show it, then you have this like privilege to basically go there and acquire the citizenship and shit like that. So yeah, I don't know. As far as I'm aware, again,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
never heard
This is
otherwise,
something I
at
like I
least.
would have looked up earlier and made sure I understood exactly what and what is not allowed. Um. Oh,
Yeah, but
hold on,
this is
hold on. I
all.
got a super chat. Maybe this is a clarification. This
Uh-huh.
from Kilo $5. The Israeli Constitution explicitly guarantees the right to self-determine exclusively to Jewish people. Um. Okay.
Yeah, but you
Well,
can be
that's
Arab Jewish though. Yeah.
right. Um. Yeah, I think
It's the same thing I said, but I
you're
think
right.
they
You,
they
you already
also
said
be
that.
considered Jewish. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's not like just Ashkenazi were allowed that. I don't believe that's the case. If someone has like proof otherwise, they can provide it. But I don't believe that I ever heard this. I do speak with a bunch of Israeli people who moved from Ukraine. So but I don't think that's the case. Anyway,
So I guess like what I would try to
yeah.
get at is the things that I have a problem with. It's not that maybe it's a little easier for certain people, even if I do think it's a
Mhm.
little silly that if a
Well, let's
Palest
talk about this. By the way, why do you think that's silly?
so
I'm
like
just
if a
curious.
Palestinian who wasn't ethnically Jewish, let's say a
Mhm.
Palestinian American even, to make it more close to my situation, who maybe their family came from that area, maybe there was a diaspora, maybe they moved away, I don't know. If they want to go back to that land and they want to immigrate, it's harder for them, despite them having a historical context, maybe family that still lives there, a connection to that land. It's harder for them to get in than me, who has zero connection, but because my great grandpa was a certain religion and ethnicity in Europe in 1910, this gives me a right over them. That is something I think is just a silly policy
Why?
that doesn't
Why?
prior.
Why? Why? Why?
Huh?
Why it's silly? I get that you think
Right.
it's
I think
silly.
it's silly
You just you
because
explained
right,
you
right.
explained the
It's silly
policy, but you
because
didn't explain why
you
it's
are
silly.
now saying I don't really care what your connection to this place is. I'm specifically
Hmm.
just trying to prioritize this culture, this mindset,
But
and
that's the
that.
goal, though, right?
No, I
That's the
understand that's the
goal.
goal, but that's
Yeah.
the issue I have, right? So like this is the American centric version, right? Like I would never say
Hmm.
we should start ideologically testing people who come in. Obviously, you want to make sure they're not like terrorists, but past that, like if I'm an American citizen and some crazy right wing Republican Christian nationalist is an American citizen, I would never make the argument that like either of these people should be excluded on the basis of ideology from being able to live in this country. And it seems to me that some, especially the way Israel does this, but like Germans giving priority to people with ethnic German uh, backgrounds to say, hey, it's easier for you to become a citizen here. Okay, like I understand this, but they're not saying, well, also you have to follow these German cultures, and even you don't even have to speak German for me to get that. For me to get like a blue card and like become a citizen once I'm
Uh,
there, there's
you
some
don't have to
language
speak
requirements,
Hebrew
but
to
like
get it, by the way. You don't have to. Like
right.
all of my friends migrated to Israel without speaking a word
No,
of
no, sure, sure. I'm not saying
Hebrew.
like in
Yeah.
comparison, but I'm saying like
Mm-hmm.
this. There isn't like some cultural tie. There isn't some like nationalistic tie. It's
Yeah, but
just
it's all
you
that.
have this ethnicity, and so in Israel, it's like okay, it's not just like like the Jewish ethnicity is sort of tied to this like project of maintaining this Jewish hegemony that like is explicit in the
Mm-hmm.
project of what Israel is. In Germany, there's not this like there's obviously like the extent of like German supremacy, which is funny talking about that in comparison to
Okay.
Jews right now.
Yeah.
But like it's not
Yeah.
like
Let's
we
go
need
there.
to maintain I don't know, Oktoberfest. We need to maintain like the German cultural practices because these things aren't like first of all, that's not even like a countrywide thing. It's literally like based in the South, so it was a bad example. But like it's not the mission of the country to like make sure that there is a
Yeah.
German
Okay. Listen,
state.
I
And if
understand
Germany
your
was
point.
to change and be malleable, like we see all these Turkish immigrants coming in and like there's more Turkish Germans and like Döner is now considered German because like the same way burritos
Yeah, I
are
know you.
American. Like this is like the
Uh-huh.
shift of countries that happen over decades that I'm okay with. I think this is fine and good, and I think preventing this is discriminatory and bad. And Israel seems to take this to an extent, or any ethnostate that I would oppose is taking to an extent. It's like we need to specifically preserve something by making discriminatory laws, because if we don't, then we'll lose this thing that I understand why you value, but I don't think is morally justified to say, and that's why we're allowed to say, no, you
So
can't come here, or you have
I
to
su-
leave, that
I
sort of thing.
understand your point. I just don't think any of that is relevant in the comparison, because the goal, right, of Germany, United States, when they allow people to migrate or to get citizenship or otherwise, is not to preserve the culture and the ethnicity as a hegemonic majority. So
It's
we are returning. Israel's is. So
okay.
we are now returning to this sort of like actually important difference. But
Yeah.
I thought at the beginning that we agreed that there's nothing particularly heinous or like super duper unique to wanting to preserve the hegemony. Because if you ask any Polish person, any Ukrainian person right now, obviously, any Italian, whatever the fuck person, they will all say, Korean, Japanese, whatever, they will all say unanimously that that's something they care about, preserving the
I don't know.
hegemony.
Maybe I said something that alluded to this, but in my opinion, like I don't agree with this. Like, don't get me wrong. I understand prioritizing and liking the concept of like, hey, we all speak this language and share this culture. What's I mean, like, there's always
That's
going to be
America brain,
distinctions,
though.
right? Right, sure, but like, I don't think it's makes sense for me to say, like immigration restriction. I'm not like an open borders policy person. Like I
Mhm.
understand like you need not because of like an ethnic reason, but it's just like if there was this free flowing immigration completely unrestricted on any aspect, this is going to cause huge economic shocks. There might be like disasters and like the welfare state or whatever like can't compensate, like the hospitals can't compensate, like you need something to control and understand like the economics and the
Yeah.
inflow and outflow. But if someone wants to come here, whether they're let's not use America. Let's say Germany, right? Because this is good. This is more more of a German centric thing. It's not like this white or America. Anyone can be American. Let's like, can anyone
Yeah,
be
America
German?
doesn't work with this comparison. Let's go
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Germany.
So
Yeah.
so in Germany, where I lived for a few years, like I'm okay with
Mhm.
the concept of anyone can be German, even if they're Turkish or they're Syrian or Muslim.
Yeah, me
The
too. I'm
concept of
also
someone
okay with
coming
that.
in
Yeah.
here and like having some ideology that's completely antithetical to the hegemonic everyone's cold and they're very efficient and punctual, but like I don't think that's the requirement or should be a
That's
requirement, right? And I don't like the idea of restricting people from being able to have that freedom of movement just
Hey,
because they're not the right
wait a
thing.
second.
Does that make sense?
You know that the current Germany is like absolutely ass-pained about how many immigrants there are now. You know that,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
That
aware.
that's
I lived there like
yeah,
very
yeah, yeah,
recently, yeah,
yeah. And that's the
but I don't
reason
like that.
why I am super cool with the idea of people coming in, with other countries, from other cultures, other religions and shit like that, only if they sort of assimilate, only if they become part of this like country. But
Why?
if someone said like, because I want to preserve this culture, I don't want to become fucking Polish, I don't want to, I like to be Ukrainian, right?
So like
So
you
yeah.
that's that this is like, yeah, getting into the distinction here where it's like I don't have an issue with 10 million people from a completely different culture
Yeah,
making
let's
changing
make
the
an
way the
example.
makeup
Even
of this
America,
country,
even
right?
let's make America. Okay, so let's say how many millions of people you have. I'm not sure exactly, but I think quite a bit. Yeah, a lot of people in the United States. Do you know the exact how many millions are there?
Like
Oh wait,
340 or 50.
forget. My God, that's a lot. Forget millions. Okay, let's say 60% of people come around now, and they are not, and they are, let's say they are, I don't know, Sharia law Muslims.
Sure. Yeah, this is like the main argument, by the way, like for people in Germany or the
Yeah.
UK, where it's like
So
we have
that's
to restrict these people because they're gonna make our country into what we don't want it to be, right?
yes, yeah, and it doesn't even have to be fucking like Sharia Muslims, for example. For example, Polish people, I quite like them. I've been in Poland. We are allies in many things, right? But they are extremely conservative compared to us. They are super religious. super duper compared to us, So Catholics, but it doesn't have to be like, I don't really care, like Arab, whatever the fuck, super religious Christian. For me, it doesn't really make that difference. So do I want them here to vote for people who would be making those values prominent in my country? Mm-mm, I don't. So yeah, so that's like, is that racist against the Poles?
Yeah.
No,
Why
it's not. Because it's about their ideology, about their political beliefs. I don't care. They're ethnically Polish, but I don't care. That doesn't matter to me. Who cares? But I care that they will completely change the culture and the nature of this country. They will make it Polish. If I wanted to live in Poland, I would live in Poland. If I wanted to live in Germany, I would live in Germany.
This is a hypothetical. I don't know if we can, like, it's unfalsifiable. Let's say if Israel realized there was a huge contingent of anti-Israel nationalism American Jews that formed a movement to do birthright at the same time and take advantage of this system, and then change the policies of Israel to accept more, Arabs in, or to like get rid of the ethnic policies. Do you think they'd stop birthright?
I mean, I'm not Israeli, so I don't know, but I would imagine. Like, for example, if I wouldn't, for example, would I, for example, prefer, let's say this, like hypothetical, like this close to reality, right? One of my close friends is, who is a volunteer as well as me, is Faik. He's Azerbaijani. He was born like me in Kharkiv, but he is Muslim and he's Azerbaijani, and quite different, like in terms of appearance and in terms of like culture, in terms of traditions, his views, religious, all of that. He's not some like super duper crazy like Islamic fundamentalist guy, but he's quite in there, like Allah, go Allah, right? So do I have more problem with him? Or will I have a problem? No, I have zero problem with him, by the way. Or will I have a problem with a Ukrainian, let's say, ethnically, right? Who like speaks Ukrainian, it looks Ukrainian, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But they are extremely pro-Russian, fucking Putinoid. Do I want Fike or that guy? Obviously Fike, right? So that's not really a question of ethnicity in that sense.
Yeah,
so
it's ideology. Because to be clear, I don't think you're like some hyper racist.
Values.
Like clearly, you're like, I don't care if they're ethnically Polish. If they want to immigrate and do what my country's culture is, I would like that. So they could be Arab, they could be Polish. And I appreciate that. I understand. It's like you value, like when I'm in Germany and it's like, okay, hey, we have this cultural mindset.
By the way, just before you say anything, I am quite soy.
You're quite soy?
I'm
like you're not nearly so like hardline on this. Yeah, no, don't worry. I've met a lot of right wingers in these places.
Just the hair should like kind of like may explain it. Like I'm not exactly like, just for everyone there. Like I'm there's a lot of people in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, in like all sorts of countries that do care more about ethnicity. For sure, like than me. So I'm not speaking for everyone here. I'm just saying that I'm not particularly interested in ethnicity, but I can understand the argument there, and that's why I'm basically arguing, quote unquote. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get at is like, I am very sympathetic to this argument. So if I'm in Germany, they don't have turnstiles on the subways because there isn't this cultural need to prevent people from getting to the subway without paying. There is a idea, this social cohesion that we need to pay for the subway. Now, don't be wrong. People still, there's literally signs everywhere that you have to check these people. People still, Germans, immigrants, they will steal. But for the most part, they understand, hey, wait a minute. We should pay for the subway because not only is it the right thing to do, but that's how the subway's funded. We should all do this. And the idea of like, what if we made half the country not believe that, is very annoying. I want people who come into Germany to have that mindset, to assimilate into that mindset of like, we're all in this together. We all need to contribute to the same project. So I support assimilation. There's all these great policies of like, hey, here's free language courses for immigrants. Here are like cultural courses for immigrants. Here's how we promote German culture. I'm fine with that. What I'm not fine with is taking a look at who the people coming into the country are and saying, well, you're ethnically German by some, standard, and you're not. And so, maybe making some sort of like discriminatory policy. I know we already agreed, like, yeah, obviously, like it makes more sense to have the ethnic Germans come to Germany if they have some history. But because you can't measure the ideology of what an ethnic German or an ethnic Jew or an ethnic Ukrainian really this as a
No, you can.
litmus,
Culture, ideology, values. You can measure those.
you
No.
can, right?
Yeah.
But
They kind of
ultimately,
matter.
like there's so much
Not to
variance
Americans,
in
apparently.
this that I
They
would
do matter.
huh?
Not to Americans apparently, but they do matter.
They do.
Yeah, I don't.
And there's
Yeah,
obviously
it's
it's
just
more likely that someone with the ethnic background or parents from that country are gonna have something to do with that. But in my eyes, there's so much variation here that the idea of like restricting certain peoples on ethnicities for immigration is getting to it like an uncomfortable concept of why don't we just let anyone who wants to make a life here make a life here, to the extent
it's
to which
America.
our system can handle it, and promote them in
Like,
as many ways as we can to assimilate into our culture, but not discriminate against people who are not ethnically
it's
tied or have
America.
some
You have
weird
it.
right of
You already have
return.
a
Like,
country like that. Not everyone needs to be like you. That's America. You know, we don't have that, so that's
sure.
fine. I don't think that every single country who doesn't have this mindset is evil. Okay, that's my whole point. Like you can't
I didn't say they're evil, to be
say.
clear. I just don't.
Yeah,
I don't like
but
that.
I mean, you do. I mean, I understand. I don't like many things about Americans. Like, I think your free speech shit is stupid as fuck.
Okay.
But what can I do? It's not my right to like dictate how it should be. Because like if your only statement is I don't like it, we don't have any problem with each other then. I don't like many things, like that's fine, right? You don't have to like fuck all really if you don't. But it's just that I imagine when you make a statement like that, when you criticize, right, Israel about that whole thing, you're making it as something like it should change, and like I don't think that's good morally, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not just I don't
It's
agree
like it's
with it, right?
prescription. It's like I don't
Yeah,
think this is morally right to do. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So because you are prescribing the judgment like that, that's where it comes like my problem. Because like if you just simply say, I think our system is better and I appreciate it more and I like it and I don't like that shit and I don't want it, that's fine. But also like consider this. It's like a non-American perspective for you, I guess. Just something to think about. Is that you are, I don't want to be extremely soy, okay? It's going to sound very soy, but I'm on the soy pill channel, so who cares at the end of the day?
Yeah. Don't worry, it's not an insult
It
here.
will. Yeah, it will be very soy, but like it stinks of privilege to me. So it stinks of someone who speaks of the country that never had their identity been infringed upon. You speak from a country that never have been genocided, never had been colonized. I mean, your country has been colonized by you, by Americans. But you American people, right? Your American national identity was never infringed upon. Nobody tried to make you speak another language forcefully. Nobody banned your language. Nobody prohibited your existence. Nobody thrown you into fucking camps and death walled you. Nobody gassed you. All of that. Nobody settled you the way you settled the continent yourself, obviously.
Sure.
So speaking of that, you have to understand that for you, the idea of preserving your own core hegemonist identity is silly for two reasons. Because one, you don't really have a hegemonist identity to begin with.
Sure. But we also have never had it be a threat to the same extent other countries have.
Yeah,
Is what you're saying.
but you also never really experienced what it's like to have it infringed upon. So if I were you, I would also be like, why the fuck do I need to protect this thing? Who attacks it? And it's valid.
To be clear,
Nobody attacks it.
I am. I mean, I haven't. I have family that died in the Holocaust. I'm
speaking as an
no,
American.
I know,
Jews
but I'm saying like
obviously-
Americans in general, like they don't have this experience. But like
Yeah.
I'm not. This concept isn't it's not like I can't grasp it. I totally understand this, but I think there's a difference between, say, Russians trying to come into Ukraine, change the ethnic makeup, and eliminate the culture, literally do a genocide type like ethnic cleanse and cultural.
Yeah, but that was happened to the
wipe.
Jews.
Or doing this to Jews, right? Yeah, like which has happened to them all over for hundreds, thousands of years.
That's why
hundreds
they
and
care
thousands of
about the preservation of that hegemonist identity, because we know, all of us, I'm not like saying I'm a Jew by any means, but like I relate to that. That's why I'm speaking that way, okay? It's not that I'm like saying Jews had the exact same. But yeah,
the difference here
I
is
preserve Ukrainian identity because each time we are governed by people and we are that aren't us, we're getting fucked. So of course, historically, it has been the case, right? So I don't want Poles to govern. I don't want Russians to govern in Ukraine. I don't want them to be the majority, because when that's the case, we're fucked.
Wait, yeah. This is what I wanted to get at. So I think there's a big difference between like the most extreme example, which is a country using hard power like Russia is to come in, fuck with the culture, eliminate this country culturally, not maybe, like nuke it off the map, but like be like, no, like we're replacing your schools with Russian language schools, and we're replacing your kids with like, this sort of shit. There's a big difference between that and people immigrating to the country that might not be part of that cultural makeup, that might not 100% buy into what most people would consider German, Polish, this sort of thing. And so it
Hmm.
seems to me, and like maybe there's more merit to this argument in Israel. I don't know if I buy into this, but that people are afraid that if you have too many of these people, eventually there's this weird kind of like same goal as the hard power invasion thing, but then once they're kind of slipped into the government, then they're going to vote and change it themselves as this sort of like malicious thing. And to me, I don't see it that way. I don't see like, oh, these people are going to invade, subvert us, get into government, and then change our country. I see it as people with different opinions and cultures can come in, and
Yeah,
that can mix, and they can vote differently, and that's fine. And I don't think that because they're going to vote
that's
in a
very
way
cute.
or change the way that I like the country the best, that gives me the right to say you can't be here. Does that make sense?
I mean, that's yes, that makes perfect sense, American sense. Like it's very very cute. But I am so envious, dude. I want to be you. I like want to be you so bad. I want to live in a country when I'm not threatened. And I don't have to assess fucking threats every 5 seconds to the very existence of our nation. That's very cool. I want that.
This is the bombed
But
versus the unbombed, right? I'm an unbombed. I'm
yes, yes. I mean, I understand 100%, by the way, despite memeing where that comes from. Like, I am not like saying that your logic is like some sort of that is stupid, or it's not. It applies to your country. So that's why when I hear like white nationalists, quote unquote, about the fact they are in the Americas, or when they speak about like let's return to the country as it was, and I'm like, what? Like English, German, Irish, French, Italian?
yeah,
That
like mixing
yeah,
all
to
these white
me,
things together, yeah.
yeah,
And
to me
let's be,
that's funny, obviously, and to most Europeans
but
it's
it's the
funny,
same
right?
logic, right?
Yeah, I mean, not really. Like it just doesn't apply to United States. That's why it's so
Well,
you're not
it
under
doesn't, because
threat.
white as a concept is a silly kind of thing that we made up to conflate all these things and use it to make out groups of like, you're black, you're Mexican, you're not white. Even though if you tried to do this in Europe, like they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like Germans are obviously better than French, and those stinky French people.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, but
it's silly,
the
but
concept of
the
the
logic is
concept
the
of white
same, right?
exists,
These
of course,
people are
to be here
saying
too.
this is what I consider the American majority hegemony. And no matter how silly that definition is, they're going to use the same logic to say this is going to change. Like white culture,
Hmm.
white hegemony, white cohesion is threatened when you have Mexicans coming in, and
Well, it
like
depends how many.
Indians coming in,
Depends
right?
how many. If the country is like majority, what Jews are trying to prevent in Israel, right, is to have a majority Arab country. So if your country was a majority Arab, hardcore Sharia law, fundamental Islamist, it would change the United States. It's just not happening. I
Sure.
don't see it happening anytime soon, to be for real. Like, that you have 60% Mexicans in your country. It's just, but the right of return, for example, what the many like Palestinians demand, will make it majority Arab country. And if you don't even believe that they will be ethnically cleansed, which I personally believe that they will ethnically cleanse the Jews if they are the majority, but even if you don't buy that, we don't have to talk about that at
Sure,
all.
sure.
Then they will not be the majority in their own country anymore. And what kind of safety net they can possibly have then? And that's a
Right.
valid
And
concern.
this is what I'm getting at, where it's like there could be the case where it's like, oh, like if these people had ultimate power through voting and democracy, this would lead to some sort of genocide or something like that. And that could be a very valid
Yeah.
risk, and you'd have to assess like, how do we deal with that? But like, again, this is the same logic in America with baseless, faulty, ethnic
Baseless and faulty,
origins.
though.
But that doesn't
That's the
matter,
problem.
because ultimately it's true that the thing they want to preserve, let's say whiteness as a white majority, would be threatened by different ethnicities coming in and saying, actually, I don't think we need a white majority, right? So no matter how much I think their stupid like thing they want to preserve is just like this baseless, oh, what is even white? They are correct to say inviting people who aren't that, who will change the makeup and say, yeah, we don't want restrictive immigration laws, and we will elect a black or a Mexican or whatever president that's not this German, Irish, Italian thing, that is going to get rid of the thing they want to preserve. So I don't think that's justification, whether or not the original thing is worth preserving, to restrict other people's movement and say you can't have a voice in this country, because there's so many ways I can look at all of these people coming in, or in Germany, all these Turkish people coming in and assimilating and changing things just for the positive, not in a way to threaten, not in a way to like destroy what it means to be German, but as the natural consequence of how cultures shift and how countries
It's a
develop and
completely
become new
different thing.
things.
It's a completely different thing, dude. It's like it's two completely different things. You're not fucking threatened. There's no valid. You can't compare two things that are similar in principle, where one argumentation is valid and the other isn't.
Okay, well, here let's pick Germany then.
Same.
Let's use Germany as an example, right? What do you think because this is real. This is a real sentiment. What are they trying to preserve when they say like we have too many people who are Turkish coming in, for example?
If you have like, for example, Turks, it's like a little bit cringe as well, because Turks have assimilated pretty well, as far as like I know. I've been in Germany for a couple of months, and most of them aren't really, committing like unhinged amount of crimes. They're not like doing anything to, they're not getting elected in the fucking German, Reichstag or anything like that. So it's not really, it's a little silly. I have always thought so, because like I've been in Germany for many months, and I never saw like any like even confrontations between really the Turks and the Germans, or like being like Turks mostly work in like fucking, as you know, like fucking food industries and all sorts of things, and it's like if anything it only added to the country. So with that I'm like in agreement with you, and I do think that aggressive sentiment against migrants that isn't it's not always valid, of course, because like you ask them what do they do that is wrong, or like that is harming the country, and they're like, who knows, they're just Turks,
Right.
It
But this is like, we can look at this with the benefit
cringe.
of hindsight and say, look, they've assimilated so well, really we should never have had like any sort of policy restricting this or discriminating. But if you were to look at like when this started, like I want to say like pre-2010s, you would be like, well, hold on, like these people are not going to be German, and they're going to change us to like a more Turkish culture, and we need to restrict them, and we don't want them to come in here and change what it means to be German. And now being Turkish American is such an integral part of German culture that I'm like, this wasn't a threat insofar as it was going to destroy Germany, but it was a threat insofar as what it meant to be German didn't include being Turkish American. It didn't include donor, right? But
they're not just allowed in with no stops. They aren't majority. Like if they were majority, it would be fucking Turkey. So, like
I guess yes. Like if we take it to the extremes of like, if we could show over the next 15 years that like Germany would go from 80 million Germans to 80 million Germans and 120 million Turks or something like this, right? It's like, oh, maybe we ought to consider what this will make the country look like, and like, I don't know if that means we need ethnic.
No, everyone should consider it.
Sure. I understand this, but
limit it.
Well, yeah, but limit it based on what? The fact that they're Turkish, or the fact that like you think that
in
Turkish
general
people.
You can't just fucking have like, hey, come on in. It's not, you yourself said you have to have reasonable borders. You're not an open borders guy. So you can't have a country if you don't have a fucking border. So yeah, it's just it defines the country, the border, right, in some sense. And it's just we are now talking about immigration, which I don't think we should be even like talking about. We're talking more about like I think you're kind of like conflating the idea of preserving the ethnic hegemony with the idea of not allowing migrants. So I'm not against not allowing migrants, but I'm certainly against allowing like millions, bajillions of them.
Well, yeah, and me too, wrong. But not really on the basis of ethnicity or like lack of German ethnicity, right? It would be because like, hey, this is going to cause economic and like structural shocks, infrastructure shocks
like,
that we couldn't deal with,
like,
right?
If you have like some magical Germans living somewhere, it's not really the case. But if you have like, I don't know, million Germans that escaped Germany, so something like, if that was the case, right?
Not in Argentina or something.
Yeah. I mean, like not the Nazi shit, but like even that, for example, you had like it's just Germany is also mostly the aggressor. That's the problem.
Yeah, in that
That's why we
case.
are so. It's also mostly imperialist country. So, for example, let's say like you have a I don't know like American. If you didn't nuke all the fucking most of the Native American people, for example, if they didn't die out of the disease and like all sorts of shit that happened, right? If for example they ended up escaping, like let's say Jews did back in the day from the Jewish kingdom, and then you like build your own shit here, you live here like as Americans for generations, and then at one day, native people are like, hey, maybe we should like go back to our ancestral place, right? And they, for example,
Oh,
lived, I
wait,
don't
one
know,
sec. Sorry,
silly
you cut out for me after ancestral. Can you start over? My bad. This is a thing on mine.
ancestral.
And yeah, the ancestral land of the Native Americans. Yeah.
Ancestral, similar words now that I think about it. Anyway,
Hmm.
point is that they, for example, let's imagine some silly situation that they live in like France, I don't know, Germany, I don't know, Denmark or some shit, and then they all like, hey, you like, let's return, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's just it's a completely different thing because like they used to be there and you nuked them and now they want to return.
Sure.
So that's a completely different thing. And like that's not the same. That's kind of what happened with the Jews, right? So the locals didn't want them there. Now they were like, what? Who the fuck are those like European Jewish fucking people that are coming in here? Like it's we live here, but it's not the same thing as it's just random assholes trying to fucking mass migrate to your country, right? Though native people would be native people you wronged by getting them the fuck out of here, right? And they now want to return, but they're native there, right? They have
Yeah.
the right in a way,
Well,
because
hold on. I
it's
mean,
not
like,
the same.
I don't even know if I would draw this distinction, but this is kind of like getting to the heart of it, where like not only would Israel not allow people who are not Jewish or like restrict it to like more Jewish immigration, but even the people that might have some sort of claim over the land, those like Palestinians, they're also not allowed, right?
Yeah,
And it's not just
I'm just
because they're not
finding that.
Jewish; it's because of
Would
this
you
like
think
kind of
Americans would just allow all those like French native Americans, English Native Americans, Irish Native American, Polish Native Americans just to drop by like by millions?
I don't
Now,
know what this would look. Whether or not they allow them is probably not. But I mean, obviously we haven't. But like the way that we kind of dealt with Native
I mean, it's not
Americans
real
with these,
situation, but it's
right, right. But like
they're not.
the way that we dealt with it, with like reservations and like reparations, like I don't know if I'm happy with like the results of how we've like kind of kept this like weird like separate but
No,
equal, or like you can use
I
casinos to
definitely
like
don't
generate
think.
revenue, or
Yeah,
like
I don't think that's a great system you have going on there. Don't get me wrong. I just brought this example up because it like makes more sense in terms of like original people had to leave due to like genocide or like colonization or whatever the fuck, and now they return. It's
right, right.
still I bet you fucking most Americans will not be like, well, sure, like bring like fucking I don't know 50 million of those guys back. Like no, probably not.
No,
Like
but would you
and
support then like some sort of filtered system where like it's limited? Let's say this, like Germany is like, look, we realize we fucked over maybe this was the Dutch, but let's just say some country in Africa, whichever one they fucked up, and it's like, look, we want to say that you want to make a better life for yourself. Maybe you want to take advantage of the first world privileges that Germany has, some of which that were acquired through us fucking over your country. So we're gonna have a funnel that's restrictive insofar as like, yeah, we're not going to like maximize this, but we're going to give you like paths to like come here. And it doesn't matter if you're ethnically German, it doesn't matter like what your ideology is, like you get this opportunity to make a better life for yourself here, and we're going to not make it so like the entirety of this country comes in, but here you go, here's a pipeline. Like I would support that. And I think that doing the opposite of that, which is to say, I don't care what happened to you, you are not allowed to come here unless there's like some specific ethnic thing that you have attached to your history, or if like I can 100% be certain that you're going to assimilate. I don't think that's a fair thing to do. I'm morally opposed to the idea of like ideologically restricting this. I understand like in the
I mean,
extremes of tens of hundreds of millions, like yes, okay, maybe this would be some crazy and like invasion type thing, but for the most part this is not how like immigration works, and restricting it
mhm.
on that basis to me is just doesn't, it's
I
not
mean, you can get a
justified.
citizenship you can get citizenship in most countries, right? By
Yeah.
following the fucking rules and shit like that, making it easier for something of that shares your ethnic background is not the same as not allowing anyone else. So the restrictions could be more tense, right? Can be very, very, very difficult to get a citizenship in the country, or it can be like relatively easy. As far as I know, getting an American one is not easy, unless you're like an exceptional fucking person or whatever the fuck, right? And it's just yeah. So it's not like, you know, like I said, we just moved so far away from like the whole ethnostate thing now. I feel like we're mostly
Okay, yeah.
talking
If you want
about
to recenter it, like
yeah, immigration and shit like that. But yeah, my main thing is like, sometimes it's like you have to look at it from the validity perspective, like how valid is the idea, right? And is it immoral to want to preserve your ethnic hegemony? And I think just by itself, it's not. So we can make
it's not
examples, for
immoral
example,
inherently.
yeah, for example, you can make a example that was done objectively quite immorally. It would be like, for example, Ottoman Empire at the end of it, right? It was clear that the empire was like sort of collapsing. Everyone was pretty fucking distraught about that. Then you lose World War One, and you know it's a shit show. And they decide, the nationalist movement then came to power in Turkey, called Young Turks. Hilariously enough, I don't know why the fuck they named themselves that. The Hassan's uncle organization, but whatever the fuck. So the Young Turks basically did make that claim of a very, very, very restrictive ethnostate, because they said that the Armenians and the Greeks are by default traitors, and they cannot be trusted because they are non-Turks and non-Muslim.
Right. And double
right?
checking, this is an example of this was done in a bad way.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So they decided that, nah, fuck those people. They cannot be trusted. They based it sort of like of a semi-real thing, like with the bankers and Jewish thing, you know? People base it like of reality a little bit, but they twist it. Because, for example, there were a lot of Armenians who wanted to assist Russia, wanted to collaborate with like Russian Empire during the war between Turkish Empire and Russian Empire, right? So it's not like out of nowhere, but the Young Turks pointed, look, you know, those people, all of them, right? All of the Armenians here, or of the Greek people here, they are treacherous, and they assisted the enemy, and they are not to be part of us, because we need to preserve ourselves, and to do that, we need to be, you know, Turks and Muslims, essentially, right?
Right.
So their
Well, hold on,
decision
wait.
was to
This is I think maybe we can get to the heart of this and like back up and like look at a super bird's eye view. Do you think it's okay to treat every member of a certain population, or an outgroup, every outgroup that is not the in-group, the same, with the same prescriptions, no matter if there are some portion of that outgroup that does something you don't like? Because that's the thing I'm principally opposed
generally
to.
no. Yeah, generally no, of course. Yeah, because especially because has been used historically, right, to do that generalization thing and just genocide people. For example, like Stalin declared all Crimean Tatars to be Nazi collaborators. That was not true.
Right.
And in fact, the opposite was true. Most of them were in the Red Army, right? But he used that to declare them basically non grata, to declare them the treacherous nation. And what's done is that they were completely removed from Crimea. Yeah. Entirely, basically.
And so the way I'm looking at this is like, okay.
Yeah, that's never a good thing.
You look at mass, okay, millions of people coming in, and this could potentially cause shocks. This could potentially change the makeup in such significant ways that, like, you know, if this happened in a short period of time, this could be some insane thing happening. Like, I understand that risk, and like saying, like, how do we make some sort of pipeline for this and compensate for this? But when I look at any country that says, you are not this, or you are this specific ethnicity, which is not this ethnicity, and because we have a fear of what if a bunch of these people came, or if even like what the ideology of your specific ethnicity is, you can't do something. That's what I have a problem with. You as an individual can't come here.
With the Turkish example, right? With the Turkish example, why I even brought it up was because that they didn't have the legitimate reason, first of all, and second of all, their answer was to destroy, to basically expel and kill the minority. They were already the majority. You see the difference there? They were already the biggest, most powerful group, Turks in Ottoman Empire, right? There was already majority Muslim, with like Turks and Arabs being two main groups in Ottoman Empire, right? So they expelled and killed millions of people, Greek and Armenians, right, in the process, because they perceived them as a threat, but they were already the minority group. They were already the group that was underprivileged, that was second-class citizens in the Ottoman Empire. It's not the same as if Turks said, I don't want other people here because I want to be majority Turkish
Yeah,
country.
I
Do you
understand
see
like
the
the positive of pushing someone out who's already here is very
Yes,
different from I don't want you to come
of
here. I
course.
understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, so preserving your hegemony by, let's say, inviting people in and giving people of the same ethnicity privileged status and the ability to easily get the citizenship, for example, like my situation with the Greek, thing I brought up, is not, and also like maybe making pretty restrictive the ability of other people to get citizenship in the country, right?
Mhm.
Is not the same
It's not the
as like
same, sure.
expel. Yeah, so that's like, yeah, those are two things. Like one thing I would be obviously against, anyone with some sort of sense should be,
Right. But like you
expelled.
and I both
It
have
is.
similar principles, like where we draw the line is different. But
Mhm.
again,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
let's
but you still haven't been able to convince me if you have a legitimate reason to preserve that hegemony. For example, like fucking abandon Israel. Fuck them, okay? Grain stealing assholes don't care.
clip it.
But yeah, yes, abandon them, okay? But just talk, for example, like easily about Ukraine. Like I would actually make a slightly provocative question to you. For example, currently Russians are engaged with the settler company, right? So territories that they occupy, they bring Russian people there. They
Mhm.
deport Ukrainians, and also a lot of Ukrainians just simply escape back to non-occupied Ukraine, right? And they move settlers from Russia there. And then there are and gonna be and maybe already are parts of Ukraine that is occupied that has now more Russians there than Ukrainians because they moved Russians there to resettle it. So like places like Melitopol, Mariupol, places like Crimea, whatever the fuck, right? And if we ever were, for example, to take it back, right? Let's say,
Mhm.
and we take it back, and let's say I personally believe that most of those Russians will run to Russia. If I'm honest, that's like my hope, kind of, if that ever happens. But like, if let's say they remain. And they are the fucking settlers who came there to illegally occupy territory, and they now live there for like, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And now 20 years later, we take back that place, and now we have a bunch of fucking Russians there, ethnic and otherwise citizens of Russia, right? So what do you think would would you be against Ukrainians basically doing the fucking ethnic cleansing? Not killing them, obviously. I would not support that, but pushing them the fuck out back to Russia.
So can you explain like the exact
Serious question.
mechanism? So essentially, you're saying like these are companies or like groups that are hired by the country to like it's almost like the agenda of a separate country to change the ethnic makeup and make it more Russian. Is this kind of so
Their
the reason
goal
I think this is
is
different, and I wouldn't have a problem with
uh-huh,
these people being kicked out, is like
removed. Yeah.
yeah, this isn't individuals with a wide range of opinions. This is state
They are though.
actors.
They're just Russian. No,
They
no,
are.
they're just Russians. They're just regular Russian people. They just come around and they go there because they're stimulated by the Russia by, for example, providing them cheap prices for burned down apartments that they sort of rebuilt in Mariupol. Right? They will now be easier, cheaper for them to live there, so they can go there. Israel does that, by the way, with the fucking settlers. The territory there will be like cheaper and things like that, right? So they come around, just regular Russian people. They just
Well, but
get
what I
that.
mean is like this is they are being used as pawns as the agenda of a country to ethnically cleanse
We're
you,
going somewhere.
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you
Yes.
could show me that the Mexican government was like, if we make it easy enough for Mexicans to get into California and eventually they'll infiltrate the ranks, and it doesn't
Silly.
matter that we haven't like, told them what to do. Just by virtue of
Mhm.
being Mexican, they're going to have some allegiance to us. And suddenly now we get better tariffs and better, and like eventually we'll be able to make California secede. Like I'd say, okay, well, hold on. Now we're not discriminating
Yes, we get it
just on
somewhere.
their
We get it
ethnicity.
somewhere. Yes.
Now we're saying we are opposing a literal invasion from a state acting, agenda. And we have to do something about that. And I do think that is different.
Yes. Because then they will be a legitimate threat. I mean, it's kind of silly to imagine Mexico being a legitimate threat too, but the thing is that when it's a legitimate threat, it's a completely different thing, right? So, for example, do I want Russians here? For example, you said like you can't group people, right? All of them, right? But in this case, I can. because those people are a tool that the Russian state is using to assimilate, to settle, and to make the Russian be the hegemonous majority on those territories, right?
Yeah, and this
So, for
is, correct me
example,
if I'm wrong, like this is like has defined parameters. Like I think like what they're doing is like a war crime, right? It's like we see that you are trying to use your people to like push other people from this country out specifically to acquire that territory, right?
in a way, like you could, they also like doing way worse things. For example, like conscripting local people like against us. That's like completely fucking deranged. It's like anti-Geneva, and Roman statute behavior to basically conscript Ukrainians and occupy territories and throw them to fight us. It's like, yeah, but it's not really like basically like what I'm trying to say here is that it's not as like black and white as you make it out to be, because technically if we were to just push them out, like let's say we take, I don't know, something, Mariupol or whatever the fuck, right? We take it back. And now there are majority Russians there, the people who have been during the occupation, right, brought there, and they now live there. So they are, legitimately have been living there for quite some time, right? They maybe even have, I don't know, families or whatnot during like 15, 20 years, right? And now we expel them. We like toss them the fuck out back to Russia.
Mhm.
Technically, that would be ethnic cleansing, like by the definition, right? Because we are cleansing particular group of people of a particular background.
Sure.
Over
And I might
land.
even oppose that, right? I might say, well, maybe you could do this in such a way where if you can now
How?
say, like, let's say when Ukraine takes this land back and is like, look, we realize you have established lives here. You've been here 5, 10 years. Maybe you were part of some like, ulterior like state acting
They hate us.
agenda.
They fucking hate us, people who came here. They think we're scum and we don't deserve any land we own. So what do we do with those people? It's what they think,
Well, you
most
try
of
to
them.
integrate them and you say like, look, we're,
Yeah,
this is Ukraine again,
suicidal.
but like, yeah, you think that's
That's
impossible?
yeah, that's America talk. That's suicidal behavior. You like
In what
that's
way?
one thing I really because that's keeping those people there. It's the recipe of having Donbass and Luhansk, of having
Hmm.
Russia then using them for insurgents, for militia, for local conflicts that will never end. Never mind the voting. Never mind that they will be then we have to give them rights then if they are part of us officially, right? We will have to give them voting rights. They will vote for pro-Russian candidates, and it's gonna be this fucking circus all over again. That's a suicidal behavior. That's kind of why I fucking hate this America brain,
So,
because you
well,
ask people to
no,
engage in
I understand. I
suicidal
understand
behavior,
what you're saying. I don't.
Israel
So,
included, by the way. You're asking the suicide out of them
it,
by saying they
but
shouldn't
can't you
preserve
flip it
their
on Israel too?
their
Like say like, hey, if you're not pushing as a Palestinian, if you're not trying to push Israeli Jews out of Israel, you're suicidal because these people, even if they are individuals with a wide spectrum of beliefs, ultimately these people are a part of an agenda from the nationalist government to have people vote people that they want into power who are then going to get policies that will bomb Palestinians, that will take their land. Like this logic in my eyes is now can be turned around on Israelis to say like, yeah, Palestinians should ethnically cleanse them because if they don't, it's suicidal, right? Like, and I don't think that's justification
yeah.
for kicking them all
That's
off the
why
land.
that's I don't support Palestinians fucking having the one state with Israel. I don't. I'm a two-stater. I think they
Hold
both
on. I
have
understand
their
because
own
you say that would be
little
then their
ethnostate.
prescription,
Yeah.
but like, don't you see that
Uh,
like my policy here would be if Palestinians did have the right to return to integrate into
mhm.
Israeli society, I don't think they would
They
be
could then.
justified in kicking all these people out because those people might or literally have voted people into power that fuck up Palestinians. I think at that point,
Wait. Can you explain? I think I lost
okay,
the
so
thread
like
of
I'm trying to
what
make
you
like the
said.
one-to-one here where you're like, can
Uh-huh.
if we go back in, is it okay to ethnically cleanse the people who have established lives here because those people might vote for things that are going to fuck up our culture and our peoples, right? Like
Mhm.
you said that
Mhm.
Ukrainians might have justification for then ethnically cleansing these Russians. I think in the short term, like especially if it's very short, like it's like, oh, these guys
Mhm.
just got here. They're very clearly part of this like a government agenda. Okay, maybe there might be some room here to just be like, okay, guys, it's been a year, we're putting you back. But when they have established lives here, and no matter how different
Yeah,
their
let's do
agendas might
public
be,
life.
you agree that like it's Russian citizens, right? It's not state actors, and they might have tons of different agendas, and they
Yeah,
might be
fuck it.
open to changing their minds on things and open to
No,
assimilation. I don't
no,
think.
no, 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 no. Fuck them up, big time.
Hmm?
That's fuck them up. If they live here for 20 years, even if we take the country, like if we ever take this territory back in like 30, 20 years, and they're still there, fuck them up. You know?
I don't. Yeah, but
There.
like, so why shouldn't the Palestinians do that? I don't think they should, but it sounds like by that logic, if the
What
Palestinians could ever
should,
have
should,
any,
should Palestinians should Palestinians do what? I
like,
don't
if they
understand.
were
Like
to
if
be
they
able
take Israel,
to have any sort of power in Israel and Israeli
they would do
democracy,
it.
they
It
should.
would
No,
make
it's not
sense
about
for
they
them to do it.
would. I'm saying should they, and it sounds like you're saying yes, they should.
Well, thing is that Israelis there are not really, they just they didn't just come in like 10 years and occupied the fucking thing, right? It has
Yeah, but
they
so,
have been living there for.
but by the logic, it's like, look, these people are going to
They're
vote for
there.
things that fuck us up.
That's their
I want.
native. That's the native country. It's not like the other way around. It's the Jews who have been tossed out of the fucking place in the first place. So you're like again conflicting those two things. Like
Well, sure,
it's
sure, sure. But
we are,
what
yeah.
I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying
Mhm.
is, look, there's no question that Palestinians have been forced off land, right? And it's like as
Yeah.
this nationalist agenda of Israel gets more and more power, there are consequences for the Palestinian people. They lose land. A lot of them get bombed. They get pushed off of their settlements that are expanding into their territory.
Yeah, that's fucked
So
up. Yeah,
by the logic
occupation's
of what
fucked
you're
up,
saying
yeah.
in Ukraine and Russia, it would
Mhm.
seem to me that like it would be justified, and I don't agree with it. I don't want this to happen, but that if the Palestinians were somehow able to get any amount of power back from any of this land or be able to participate in the democracy, they should ethnically cleanse the Jews, because it's like, oh, the Jews, if they get power, they're going to kill us and
Push
they're
them
going to take our
there,
land,
bro.
right? But I
Push them
think that
there. They don't
huh?
have a country. I can push Russians. I can push. We can push Russians, that right, settlers that came in to Russia. Where are you pushing Israelis to?
So the only difference here
They
is
don't have
not
another
the
country.
ethnically cleansing would be okay if, let's just say, there was like Israel 2, and it's like, okay, as long as you guys all go back to Israel 2,
Yeah,
then
then they would be fucking settlers that you all call them to be. That they're not. Don't tell them to return to Brooklyn, by the way. Anti-Semitic as fuck. I heard you say that. You're not getting a pass. Okay,
that
even
was
though you're
that
Jew.
was in frustration of like, damn, I really
Yeah,
wish they
I'm
didn't make
joking.
Israel
Yeah,
in Israel. I wish they
yeah,
had made it in Brooklyn. Not they should all go back now.
yeah. You don't have. Where do you push them? To the sea, as they say.
Well, yeah,
Like
if there's no
where
place
do
to
you push
go,
them?
I understand this, but like, I don't
Yeah,
think this is
they're
the
there.
determining factor as to whether or not they should do it, right? Because I don't think it's like in the scenario where they could go back to Russia, and I'm not like, oh, and if they've lived here for 20 years and there's a potential for like integration here, like we should just say fuck you, like
I mean, by the way, if there are people there, right? There are particular people. I mean, it's a messy ass process. I will, I don't want to even to deal with that nonsense. It will always be messy and fucking look bad if we do that, right? That's why they settled them there as well. By the way, that's also one of the reasons, because if you want to push them out, then it will always look fucking bad, no matter how you do it, right? Especially to the gentle, fucking infantile Western mind, it would be extremely awful, and everyone would be saying, "Oh, Ukrainians doing ethnic cleansing," all that dog shit, right? But a point is that there might be people like Russian people who came in there, and then they will be like, well, I want to stay here, I want to stay even if it's Ukraine. I want to, still remain in like whatever the fuck, Mariupol, Melitopol, whatever it is. But that was built on the bones of Ukrainian people that they killed or tossed out prior. And also they came to the illegally occupied territory knowing that is occupied to live there. They're not some like stupid ass zombies, right? They know that Russia occupied this and that used to be Ukraine. They came to Mariupol, it was burnt to crisp. They saw that during the rebuilding process that they were doing there, right? So they know exactly where they came. They know exactly that they got the apartments of the people who they killed. So should I be like super sympathetic or risk my country and the national integrity of us, the wronged side in this, to maybe toss out one or two people who would be chill if they stayed? Or like a dozen of people, 100 of people? This is a calculation, nasty one that you have to make, but you have to make it. Are they worth it? Can there be people who can be chill and live there? Maybe. Like, I'm not gonna say like all of them 100% demons, but yeah, it's just the calculation you have to make.
Right.
Never mind
I
the fact
understand.
that,
By the way, the logic
yeah,
isn't lost on me at all. It's
yeah,
just the issue I have morally with the idea of like, is if that was the only option, okay, cool. Because if they don't, like, Russians are going to be able to have justification when they try to come back and steal this land back in 20 years. Okay. But the fact that you're like,
Never
well,
mind,
is it
there
okay to
will be
fuck
groups
over
there.
one or two? Like, where do you draw the line of how many people who clearly are individuals am I willing to fuck over to have a more broad policy of discrimination, knowing that, like, it's like, hey, I'm not going to let X amount of Mexicans into my country because no matter how many individuals of there that would be perfectly acceptable to me, if I looked at this on a case by case basis, ultimately, I think that they'll make my country worse if they're still here. Like that to me is where the moral, failing here of like is the
Yeah, but
utilitarian
that's why because
potential. Yeah.
listen, that's why you have to look at the case by case sort of basis here. Like, because there are so many factors in, right? You can't just, that's kind of why I have the problem with what you said at the end of the day. It's not that I don't see your logic or that I don't see your reasoning. I do, obviously, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be bothering
Yeah.
to talk with you. But yeah, but it's just that I think the main mistake you make is not your reasoning, is that you apply it to literally everything. Like, it's a maximalist, very broad position without taking into account quite a bit of a nuance, because like the example of that I brought up to you about Ukraine is not at all similar to the example of I don't know, France randomly nuking Arabs from their country because they ethnically cleansing them to be French. Like, it's not the same, right? Those are two different things. But
Right.
like
And like I'm
many
glad we
people
had
would
this
would
example of
say
like a
ethnically.
state agenda, right? Because that does make it a lot different.
Yes,
Um,
of course it is, but it's also the people agenda. It's not just the state. Like, it's not that the Russians are like absolutely free from like, imagine yourself like a Russian like that. You live in, I don't know, some fucking bumps fucking hole in Russia, like, I don't know, Syktyvkar or some shit, right? And now you get in a proposal to live in Mariupol near the sea. The city will be rebuilt. You will get like a better apartment that you have now for much cheaper. And you're like, yeah, like, they killed Ukrainians there, and it's like they steal their land and it's occupied, but like it sounds based. Like, I will go there. So you do understand what kind of person you have to be to even make that choice. Either you are extremely poor, desperate, which the case, they do use people like that in the army, unfortunately, quite a bit, and or you have to be absolutely immoral cunt that doesn't care,
yeah.
and
And
or you
and don't you
both.
think like instead of having a broad policy that will fuck over the people who aren't immoral, it would be okay to try to have programs and ways of assessing this and making sure a state
How?
government.
How do you assess who's lying and who's not?
It's
Like,
not
for
about
example,
lying. Like
here
I'm not
comes.
saying we like literally have like a poll where we test their ideology, but it's like that's why I don't support a policy. It's just and then we'll kick them all out just in case. It's all right. Let's try to incentivize the people who have this not immoral character that we disagree with to work with us. And then if there's people that
You
are
can
part of,
only do that if you are in power to do that, if you are powered up to do that, if it's not a big risk to you, right?
yeah,
So if we had zero risk of Russians attacking us again, or like a very low risk, let's not go zero, let's go like just quite low, right? And we were not fighting with a country 30 times our fucking size that tried to destroy us like 10 fucking times during our history, right? And occupied us like 5 times by now. So yeah, it's just, if we were in that position, then yes, we should maybe make moves like that. But we're not in that position, and we'll never will be. So why the fuck should I risk my people, to my sovereignty, risk our nation
yeah, for the potential like
to
individuals
for
who
the
would be good.
fucking
I understand.
yeah,
So
like,
so I
I'm
guess
sad
I
sad for them, but like, whatever,
so I see a
in the
question in
grand scheme
chat
of
that's a
things.
little more of an extreme example of a question I want to ask, where it's like, because when you said like I'm okay with fucking over like the one or two like non-immoral people here, but someone in chat's like
Although,
like what to what extent, or like where this is maybe a little unfair, but like where is the line drawn? Like
uh-huh.
if you had to fuck over 1 million people for what you think is the sake of your country, right? If you had to fuck over like
I mean,
10 million
by
people, like
definition here, depends of how what fucking off for fucking me we mean. I don't support obviously killing them. I don't support any of that. But like, yeah. But point is, just to make it clear that I don't mean we should kill those people, but just in case. But like, yeah, it's just that
just in
they
case.
are by default already immoral because they came there. So it's not like
Immoral just from coming.
yes.
Well, but like
What's
you
not
said, like some of these
immoral
people
about
are
it?
like poor, maybe they have no other choice, and Russians are exploiting their situation. And so, like,
They don't have. They
like,
have
if from their
chance.
perspective, it's like,
They
okay, I have
destroyed,
nothing here.
stolen
Now I
shit.
have something. Maybe I'm the pawn of a state, but like, why should I get fucked over just because the state tried to use me to assimilate your
That's
country?
immoral. That's immoral. Even if you're poor, that's immoral. Yeah, sure, you're more incentivized because you're poor. I can understand that. You know, like there are some fuckers who came there like just because they're fucking assholes, basically, who enjoy imperialist colonialist projects because they hate Ukraine, right? And they think they have a right to us. But at the end of the day, even if I'm poor, that's not my problem. That's not my problem. They're poor. That's not the problem of my country and of my nation if they're poor in Russia and they decide to come here and steal and live on people's bones. Don't give a fuck. I have friends who saw Russians live in their apartments now. Do you imagine how that feels? You have been left, you have been tossed out, like running for your life while your fucking neighbors and your dog and your mom get like shot in the fucking face. And then you see fucking Russians posting Instagram videos of them posing in their apartments that used to be yours.
Yeah,
Like,
and,
why
and to be
should I
clear, that's
put
why like I
them?
think the time matters, right? Like because if you're
Of
gonna
course.
like say the Native Americans, like, oh, I'm upset. I see the soy pill. He's on like a lonely land right now, and it's like that used to be my ancestors versus like 5 years ago, 3 years ago, you
Yeah,
just
like
got here. I do think
it's
these
been a
things are
couple of
different.
years ago. Of
Um,
course, there can be a point to be made. Of course, right? There is a point to be made. I will concede that at least. That if, for example, if we didn't take it, I don't know, 100 years has passed, be quite different now. I
yeah,
guess in many sense.
but
Yeah,
that's the
it's a
thing is like
different
there's not an
situation.
exact cutoff for this, and like this
No,
whole
there's
like
not. There's not. Of course. Yeah.
retributive like what's the word I'm looking for? Like this like back and forth, like kind of like revenge, like push you here, push you there. It
It's a complex situation. It's a very complex situation. You can't really, for example, like I don't know how much you know about Nagorno-Karabakh with the Azerbaijan Armenia whole situation that happened recently. That basically nobody cares, but they did toss the fuck out the fucking Armenians there now, Azerbaijani people, and they have been like back and forth, and they have been fighting who is in control, who is in the majority there, based on ethnic grounds again, right? But the recent Azerbaijani took Nagorno-Karabakh, and Russia as an ally of Armenia was not able really to defend them or didn't give a fuck because they were bogged down here and they just simply didn't care basically to assist their allies, I guess. Same with Syria and, Assad and shit like that. So they just tossed the people the fuck out. And like it
um
happens, you know?
this is making me think now like uh how do I phrase this? Like, okay, so it's like, okay, obviously we already were on the presupposition that the ethnic cleansing would be bad, if like
Mm-hmm.
from the Palestinians doing this to Israelis. But like part of this to you is like because they where? Like where are they pushing them back to? Versus in the Russia cases, like I'm pushing these Russian settlers that were
Yeah,
actors
my
of the
point,
state.
just to
Like,
make it very clear,
yeah.
is to if you're doing this against settler colonialist fucking invaders, that's a little bit more morally justified, to put it mildly.
So
But
you
yeah,
realize,
in the
let me
case,
ask, I'm not prescribing this to you, but
yeah,
like, so Palestinians being like, okay, West Bank, Gaza, Israeli settlers, kicking them out back to Israel. This would be like
yeah,
more
kick
morally
those fuckers
justified.
out. Yes,
Right.
fuck
Okay.
him. I don't care
Okay.
about those guys. Like, fuck
Okay.
him up
But
big time. Actually, do
but I
whatever the
was
fuck you want.
also to flip this, like,
Yeah,
where do the Palestinians go? Like, if they keep getting pushed out, right? Like, there's no Palestine to return back to. It's not
that's
like,
I don't support settlers whatsoever. I think they're a fucking legitimate target. They should be fucked big time.
right.
Israeli ones,
Well,
I mean.
what I'm saying is, like,
Yeah,
from their point of view, the country of Israel is that. This is like, oh, whoop, the Jews came
yeah,
in and made a
100%.
settlement and pushed us out, and now we have nowhere to go, right?
Yeah, but that's like, first of all, it's not really quite the case in the sense that if there were not 2 million Arabs living in Israel, I would say maybe. But you can get a citizenship, and they do, and they live the non-Jews. There are 2 million people there. It's quite a bit in a small country like this.
Yeah, but the
So
Palestinians can't do that.
I mean, you mean the one in the occupation right now?
Yeah.
Or that's the problem. That's the occupation problem. That's why Israel is fucked up in the head because of that. Not because they're fucking settler colonial Brooklyn guys, as you guys like to say, but
Okay.
because they have permanent occupation. That's insanity. That shouldn't be happening. Obviously, you can't have people not be part of your country, but also not be in their own country and just permanently keeping them in a fucking limbo of endless occupation. That's where the fuckery happens, really, because it will never be resolved in any normal way unless it's just mental. Of course, they need their own state, Palestinians, but problem is that their state biologic will also be an ethnostate. And you should
Yeah.
be then opposing them, I guess,
Yeah, I
because
would.
they're not
I
going to be
would if
having.
they're like, yeah, no one else can come in. But
I mean, yeah, but that's silly to oppose. That's silly. If you lived in a like Palestinians had, they have dreamt about their own country, like just in a way that Ukrainians were for far longer. Let's be for real. But we have been fighting to have our own country before, like Lenin, Soviet Union occupation. We had 4 or 5 years of war for our independence that we lost, and then we got separated, partitioned by Polish, by the Soviet Russia, by fucking all sorts of people, Romanians and all sorts of cunts, right? And they, no offense to all my fellow Europeans, but you stabbed us in the back big time over there. But yeah, it's
Stabbed
just
us in the
that,
back. Whoa, this is
yeah,
Nazi rhetoric now, man.
yeah, the Polish, they fucking always do this backstab when nobody wants it, okay? But point is that they partitioned us, right? Between each other, right? Which is kind of hilarious because then Germany and Soviet Russia and Soviet Union partitioned Poland the exact same way. But what can you do, karma? Point that was wrong, obviously. I mean, I don't support destruction of Polish people by Germans and Soviets, obviously. But yeah, point is, jokes aside, right? Is that it's the situation there is that I understand the wanting to be your own nation and wanting to have your own safety net that hegemony provides in the countries like this. Because those are the countries who have been fighting to have their own fucking hegemony, their own fucking rights, their own fucking thing, because they have been discriminated and they have been prosecuted and they have been incredibly, slighted by everyone else. So that's a completely different thing. But with Jews, problem is with Israel is that both Jews and Palestinians are people like that. Okay, that's the problem. So we have two people that have been in that. With Russia, it's not the same. There are the imperialists, there are the big guy, there are the occupier. We never occupied them. Okay. We never did anything to them historically. So so that's a completely different things. And that's my whole idea that I want to present to you, to your Americana brain, is to look at this from a perspective of the people who have justified reasons to want that hegemony, because otherwise they are at the risk, and they have been historically. It's not that they made this up, it's not like this is like some idea out of nowhere. Because, for example, like our most epic example, like comes to me right now, is Ukraine. I don't know how much you know history about this, but there was like this idea after World War I that you basically separate pieces of land to countries based of ethnic majorities. That was actually like how it was done. So you have like ethnic majority of people in this piece of land. So this piece of land goes to this particular country, because so many empires collapsed and there was so many like redistribution, right, of what is there, what piece of land goes where. And they made this like rule that maybe it's a good like sort of principle to just look at the ethnic makeup of that region and decide to where it goes, right? So that was basically how, for example, the Poland, at the time, when they separated us with the Soviet Union, they decided that they want that to get that way with us. So they had like this Halichina region, right? That was, and there's other regions that were like majority like Polish. And then they decide that they will also take Volyn, which wasn't majority Polish. That was majority Ukrainian. And know what happened then? I don't know if you know about Volyn massacre, but it's like an extremely nasty situation when Ukrainians basically killed the fucking Poles there later. Okay. So, so that's like a whole other thing, because Polish people were occupiers there. And they were, but they were also technically the minority. There were less number of Poles there than they were Ukrainians, right? So this whole thing with like ethnic makeups and like, it gets fucking messy, obviously, because people get separated with like different groups. Multiple groups claim they have the right to that land by like ethnic or whatever nationalist principle, whatever the fuck it is. But yeah, what I'm telling you though is that it's a completely different feeling and sense here, because I, as a Ukrainian, and any single Ukrainian here, has a very legitimate reason to not be wanting to be governed, or to have or do not have a majority Ukrainian population, or do not have a state of our own that is Ukrainian.
Okay, wait, because maybe this can lead into kind of like the final thing that like sparked this whole conversation, which is like, there's a very clear understanding of what you just said, and like that risk. And in the same way, I don't think it's completely unfounded for people in Israel to be like, well, hold on, if these people get power, they, by your logic even, might feel justified ethnically cleansing us to make sure nothing like that ever happens to them again. So like it's not like this is lost to me. Like there's no way this would ever happen. And it's like obviously in the Russian example, it's like they're literally the state of Russia is trying to enforce this and make it happen. So it's like okay, obviously this can and will possibly be an agenda of certain peoples, but if they don't have a place to go, and the ethnic cleansing is the only thing you can do to make sure that they don't do it back to you, what's the ultimate like it's a messy situation. This Israel-Palestine is like I'll be the first to say it's complicated. You know, people think it's simple, but it's complicated. And it's like it seems to me that if you think, let's say it was a 90% risk that this is going to happen if you give these people democracy and voting rights, and like you can also apply this to the Russia example. Let's say Russia didn't exist and like these Russian settlers came from some non-state of Russia, right?
That would be so good.
Okay, if that was the case, Jesus.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I understand. Like they're shahiding you every day. So
right now.
But it's like okay, so it's like okay, we will get ethnically cleansed unless we ethnically cleanse. And this to me is still an unacceptable situation to perpetuate because you're like, hey, you said it's bullshit about this occupation, this like permanent occupation and keeping them in limbo because they don't have a state. Well, okay. But if the only other option is that, it seems to be because you can't give them a state because if you do, then this will happen. Then it's like, okay, well, so there's either perpetual ethnic cleansing by the people who have more power, or there's a potential ethnic cleansing where there's maybe, in my opinion, a possibility for some sort of integration and reconciliation. But if you don't, you're just.
I apologize. Can you repeat the same? You cut off for like a.
Sure. So it seems to be the case that like you can recognize that this perpetual occupation is not an acceptable way to like live long term. And even if there is the threat that if these people had their state or their democracy or some sort of power in Israel, that this could lead to something like what Russia is trying to do in Ukraine. If they don't have a place to go and you can't just say, go back to your own country, then there's either the perpetual ethnic cleansing from the people in power to say, no, you can never come into our country as a large enough group and you can never have your own country and we're just going to do this forever. Or the other people ethnically cleanse us, and it's like, well, both of these are unacceptable to me. How do you move forward from that? If that's like you can recognize the injustice, but we can't. I'm not asking you to solve Israel-Palestine, but it's like
I was about to say, I'm not going to be the one. Okay, not today. The Israel-Palestine will not be solved today.
Benjamin Netanyahu, if you're listening. He's got the answers.
I got the answer. But I honestly that's kind of why I rarely ever. This is like I am actually cursed right now that I'm talking about this because I haven't spoke about Palestine and Israel publicly pretty much at all. Yeah. Is exactly because of this being like such a mess and both sides are retarded and also like a bunch of people.
Some Palestinian and Israeli person is watching us talk like you watch like two people on Tim Pool who are not Ukrainian experts talk about the future of your country.
Yeah,
right? So.
I don't want to talk about this because of that, because I hate when people speak about Ukraine knowing fuck all about it, and I don't want to perpetuate that myself. So I'm also like, I have opinions, but I don't really publicly express them. That's probably the first time, and ironically, but I'm kind of doing that in a way. But that's why I really wanted to bring this conversation to the ethnic state as a general thing that applies not just to Israel, but we ended up talking about fucking Israel, obviously, because it always happens.
Yeah, that's where it came from,
the curse. So. Yeah, that's why we actually need to support, I'm joking. I'm joking. Yeah, it's the Jew thing. It happens, like you can't avoid it, and unfortunately. But at the end of the day, like I personally don't really know. You spoke with Lonerbox, but who is way more educated on the subject than I ever be. So congrats on that. But as far as like they go, like logically to me, like the solution would be them both having their own fucking ethnostate. That would be a solution. That, but problem with that, of course, is that most people, as far as I know, don't really want it there. So if you ask like to average Palestinian person, I'm not sure if they support two-state solution is the problem, So I can be like this fucking Ukrainian random ass who is like, yeah, that's the best solution. But at the end of the day, like it's kind of more important what they think at the end of the day, because it's, their place. And I believe that they are thinking of the mind that they need to have it all. That they need to have like, all of Israel basically to be Palestine, right? From the river to the sea, blah, 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 right? But if their aim was, okay, this is like completely fucked, historically a mess, like everyone has their own grievances, everyone did fucked up shit, so why don't we just, get your settlers the fuck out, back to Israel. We have like a West Bank and I don't know, and Gaza be like the fucking Palestine, and the rest would be like Israel, whatever the fuck, right? And they both like live that way. If that
Yeah,
was
I think a
what they
majority of
were,
people like I think are opposed to one state and they do want like this sort of two state, maybe
oh,
ethno-state, double state thing that you're talking about. But again,
I'm
not
not
super
sure
up to
about
date
that.
on it.
I'm not sure. I heard different things, and I'm not like gonna guarantee if that's what they want, then that's also the way to do it, unironically. But unfortunately, neither Israel nor Hamas obviously would be the people to fucking enact that thing with some sort of like flip. And also, the West doesn't really help in that sense, right? By propelling whatever the fuck is going on. Like we have like a bunch of Israel simps now that are just full scale support Israel and everything they do in the face of Trump, for example, right? But we also have absolutely unhinged fucking leftoids and like a bunch of people who are basically advocating for the destruction of Israel as a state, which not gonna happen. I'm sorry. Even if you
Yeah.
want it, it's not gonna happen. Same with Russia. Like I might want whatever the fuck I want, but it's not happening. Okay, so there's no point in
Let me
like
suggest
yeah,
this. Like, let's like back up
yeah.
and say, like, would you agree with this prescription? Even though I know we're not going to see 100% eye to eye on this,
Mhm.
you and I can agree that given certain provable state actions of trying to infiltrate, overthrow, or use their ethnic population to fuck your ethnic population and your sovereignty, that this could justify, even on the ethnic grounds, ethnic immigration restrictions, maybe even what would be called ethnic cleansing. Yeah.
Yeah, population transfer, you would say,
But
but
ethnic
you
cleansing.
can't
Yeah,
call
we
it.
can soften it with
You
words. And
can't
like, I'm
call
not
it.
trying to make it say like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
pro genocide, but
yeah.
like you and I agree,
No, no,
like,
no, no. Yeah,
oh,
I
hold on,
understand. I understand.
Russian state actors or companies are taking people and on an ethnic basis and moving them into this place to subvert them and to acquire and steal that land, and that
Yeah,
should
but
be
by the way,
opposed.
they're not doing that like against the people's will, okay? It's just a suggestion. They basically make the advertisement, if
Oh,
you
sure.
will,
Like a state
of
government is not like some absent thing.
yeah,
People will either vote for
yeah.
them.
We're not like
I thought what is
we
150% of the population supports Putin. So let's be clear. I mean,
I
they want
mean,
this, right?
probably not, but yeah, 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 but yeah, quite a bit of majority does either conform to
Right.
it or like lukewarm support it or just doesn't give a fuck. That's why we more honest than saying all of them like are fucking Putinoid with
Yeah.
the saliva out of their mouth. But most of them are conformists and they kind of don't give a fuck at the
Sure,
end of
sure.
the day. So
What I'm trying to get
yes,
is like
that's
there are
yeah.
extreme examples of this where you and I would agree, like especially with provable state actions and agendas, like we can
Yes,
oppose this.
and I
My
think
issue
Israel is such
comes
an example.
from when it's on individual bases, immigration restrictions that are going to affect people without some like definitive provable agenda, but just I'm worried about preserving what I want this country to be, and therefore you can't come here. That's where my issue lies. And so
And
I
I
understand.
understand that, yeah.
Yeah, and I understand like
Mhm.
there is this wide spectrum of like what an ethno-state could technically be and what kind of policies
Yeah.
there could be. And what I'm principally opposed to is, for most cases, I don't think these are state actors and this is going to transform the country into some ugly, disgusting thing. And I just want to make sure that when we are implementing these policies, they're very specific in like scenarios that you've laid out to me that are like, oh yeah, this is so fucking clear what is being done here versus I'm afraid of this country changing in a way I don't like, and therefore I'm going to use it to discriminate on an ethnic basis. That's what I
Those are
want to
two
make sure
different
we
yeah,
distinguish.
yeah. Those are very different things, and that's why I started this conversation with basically, differentiation between the two. I personally, and I think most people, to be honest, in the world, don't really. I mean, I'm not speaking, for the most people in the world, but as far as like non-America, not the West, not that the New World people are quite. I don't know, most of them will say that preserving the hegemony of your country by, for example, limiting immigration is not bad at all, so I think that's just basically a statement of a fact, whereas your second version of it, right, where you do some fucking actions that are restricting the rights of the people who are minorities, when you are prohibiting them from participating in the government, when you basically don't allow them to even represent that ethnic group, minority group in any way, like in the government, right, and then the most extreme example would be cleansing them, so like deporting them or just killing them straight up or whatever the fuck, right? So there's obviously like a gradient to this thing, and it's not exactly
Yeah,
clear
and I
in
would
terms of
clarify,
line.
like, when I think about what if 40 million of some other country came into America and would transform it, the number there doesn't matter so much to me as for this hypothetical to happen, this probably would be some like state agenda. This probably would be some like
Yeah,
thing to
unlikely that they just
transform. And I
naturally
think for the most part,
will
these
come
things
around.
aren't.
Yeah.
And so because they
Yeah.
aren't that, I'm uncomfortable with saying you can't be here because this is going to transform us. I don't want that sort of kind of immigration restriction. The immigration restriction should be mostly purely based not on who you are or your ethnicity, but based on, can our economy handle this right now? Does it make sense to have this amount of people inflowing with this amount of people outflowing? And I'm much more comfortable with that. So,
And yeah, I
yeah,
also understand that, and I kind of agree with you there. But I'm just also one thing just to stay is that always try to keep in mind, I guess, when you talk about the subjects publicly. If you're like a regular American person, obviously be America centric all you like, nobody cares, right? It's your right. But
sure.
if you are a public speaker like yourself, right, who talks about things like about the political stuff, about the geopolitical stuff, then I think it's kind of normal to ask you to at least consider that non-American perspective that is, for example, like with your type of logic, right? You're only thinking about, will it economically, for example, hurt my country? If it doesn't, if the migration is based in good and like simply basically assists my country, right, in
Yeah,
a
yeah.
positive way, right, then what the fuck is the problem? And I would 100% agree with you. If that's the case, like I don't see a problem either, right? But it's just that it's a very, I am most powerful country on earth and nothing can threaten me logic. And it's also the logic of the people who are based upon idea of a nation that isn't based out of shared ethnic background, that isn't based out of shared, one homogeneous identity. And no matter what white identitarians in the United States tell you, you're not a country that is based of a principle of a shared identity that isn't national. It is national identity to be American. America is a nation. When someone says to me, imagine an American, I can imagine a black guy, I can imagine a white guy, I can imagine a fucking Mexican, Latin American dude, or I can imagine anyone, and they're all equally American, right?
Yeah.
But
And I think
yeah,
even if they're not equally ethnic German or equally culturally German or, Ukrainian or whatever, I think it should be incumbent on the country to have a very good reason to restrict it. And I don't think it's good enough to just say, if enough of these people did this, you wouldn't be like us. That's not that's not enough for me. And I understand the
honestly,
sentiment, and I understand that it's like you need to recontextualize and think about this, because that's why I have this conversation. I'm glad you brought this up, because it's not, this wasn't a foreign concept to me. Like I lived in Europe for a very long time. But I still think it needs to like have a more strong justification.
I will
that's
agree.
where I'm
Like,
coming
I
from.
don't think I don't think really that we disagree in that regard at all. If your like main justification, if the person comes up to you, fucking kissing or some guy, I don't know, like a guy like that, the Cassian kissing guy, right? And then Destiny asked him basically when they debated, like, I think about what makes, why don't you want, like, for example, I don't know, Pakistani people or some shit in your country, right? And it's a normal question. You can answer it normally, but he basically just said, so they don't commit crime, brother.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Which is just like, yeah, it's like, yeah.
yeah. That's not defending your culture. Your culture isn't crime or no crime, okay? British people commit English, English ethnically people commit fucking crimes too. It's not like if you don't. Yeah, I agree with that on your end, that you need to have a strong reason for that, and that reason needs to be, and that reason is like sort of murky and can be debated, obviously,
Yeah.
right?
And
That's
like
why
even
we're
on a
talking.
cultural level too, it's
Yeah.
like I looked at Pakistan and they're a lot dirtier. They litter more in this country.
What the fuck?
That's not enough
That's
for me to say, well, you an
Yeah.
individually Pakistani person can't come because I'm now judging you based on the culture you're coming from. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. I don't think any reasonable person in the fucking 21st century should be arguing that, because it's kind of like cringe.
Unfortunately, that's where the Overton window is now. So
Yeah, I understand, but yeah, this just, to me, that's kind of like stupid in principle, because I really would want a guy like Kissinger, for example, in debate, right, to be like, well, actually, I want to preserve British culture, and then say what exactly he's preserving.
yeah.
Instead, they never say that. And it's like, my guy, just say you don't want Muslims in your country and be done with it. Like, unironically, that's just it's a waste of everyone's fucking time right now to listen to you bubble about fucking ephemeric shit. Like, yeah, and it's just, and you can even make arguments, by the way, if you're kissing. You can go, like, why you don't want Muslim people
Yeah.
here. And that would be better than whatever the fuck the world salad people do. Like you said, that they will change the, I don't know, the fucking, I don't know, culture or whatever the fuck. Just
Yeah.
no, it's if you heard me like speak for this whole time, like I didn't really bring this up as much. I wasn't like, oh, they're just gonna change the way we cook our borscht, right?
Yeah.
Although that matters to me, of course. Like I want to preserve the original recipe of the borscht. Okay, the borscht matters. Borscht life matters. But at the end of the day, like it's not what Israelis really talk about, and it's not really what Ukrainians talk about when they talk about the reasons for the hegemony. Rarely you would hear an Israeli being like, "Oh man, I just don't want the fucking dish or like the music or like the values or like that change." They speak about the legitimate, reason for that hegemony because otherwise it's a threat to them, to their existence.
Yeah.
And you can disagree with that all you want, but at the end of the day, yeah, just my main point was like, first consider, and second of all, what type of ethnic state you are against, and also why are you calling them particularly an ethnostate when other countries are basically the same.
Yeah, no, I
in that regard.
appreciate that we've like looked more at like zoomed out what's the spectrum, what policies are good, what policies are bad, what policies are like more common. So, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about it. I'm about to wrap up here. Do you are always doing some sort of fundraiser? I haven't done a Ukrainian fundraiser in a few months, but like, do you have something you want to promote right now? Because I can throw it in the description.
We just finished the very like big Warm Hugs fundraiser for Warm Hugs for Ukraine fundraiser. So I'm kind of taking a little bit of a break in between, but soon I will be back on my like proper schedule of my own personal fundraisers without like Warm Hugs is like Loner Box, Destinies, and like a bunch of other communities participated in it, and it's like yeah. So I can't promote anything now, but if you can like just throw a link to my Twitter and stuff,
Yeah,
that
that's
people
already in
can.
there. So if they follow you, they'll be up to date when you start posting about something, the next one.
Yeah, and I typically just pin them like to the top. The fundraisers are currently ongoing, and then I show people like how it's going, what's going on, and we are about to finish the big one we just did, because I also transferred 5 something thousand euros to them, and I will add that to the finishing fundraiser so they can cook food essentially for refugees, for children, for disabled people that are all having pretty bad time due to the war and stuff like that. And that's a very cool organization we're helping, and I hope to show it off and stuff, and then close it, and then do some other stuff.
Right on.
So yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah,
and
of course.
If you
And
want,
hey, I appreciate. I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I got called a useful commie cocksleeve this entire time.
I don't think I ever accused you of being one.
No.
I think I accused
you were like, you might be on the path to that, but yeah, there was some like, I'm so used to the slurs being thrown out, and I'm like, hey, wow, we made it 2 hours, no slurs.
Yeah. I don't think you should be labeled that way. You come off to me as someone who's not doing the sneak. Not doing like it at least maliciously, or like being an idiot who just. I don't think you're purposefully doing any of that. So I know people like accuse you of that.
That's why I say, like, guys, maybe this is just my unironic dog shit opinion. Okay, can you just take me at my word?
Yeah. It's known to happen. Sometimes people have bad takes, and I hope that it's it's at least some thoughts were provoked, I guess. And yeah, if you want, I can show you my bunny on camera.
Oh,
also
yes,
new.
People will want to see the bunny, please, real quick.
Yeah, because people demand it, and I never do it because she doesn't really particularly enjoy being picked up. But she's here now, so I can try. If she is not like super against it, I will show it. Yeah.
People want the bunny. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed. I think that was a good conversation. That was a lot of fun. I'm liking streaming more, guys. Maybe I will. Look, I think this is like one of my bigger streams of like, 300 average. It's crazy. I'm used to like 50, 100. Looks like people are tuning in now. This is great. People like hearing what the propeller hat man has to say. Don't worry, the VOD will be up, David. Oh
my God. She was not happy.
Yeah, I can't tell like when a bunny is happy or not, but I mean, it's cute. That's what cares. It matters to me.
I'm not in my headphones, so I apologize. I can't hear much what
she can't hear me say, this is the ugliest bunny I've ever seen. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Fucking show people how cute you are. She's so mad. I will put her back. I'm sorry. You're getting the extremely annoyed bunny.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, okay? The people demand it. I am 100% getting an annoyed bunny later.
Okay. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on. Guys, her links are in the description. I'll post the VOD later. And yeah, have a good one. Stay safe. I think it's crazy. Like
Yeah, bye
every
bye.
other time we talk, it's like, hey, I'm at risk of being exploded right now, and that really bothers me. So best of luck, and I hope
Yeah,
the
thank you.
best
I
for you
appreciate
and your
that. Yeah.
people and the country. So it's fucked. So
Yeah, bye. Thank you. Bye
bye,
bye.
guys. All right, real quick, guys. Update. I'm about to go to San Francisco. I'm actually meeting Ben, Mr. Benjamin Gilbert of PV. He's going there. There's a big Shoycott thing going on. I think Vosh is going to be there, and Hassan. I don't know if Hassan's in person or if it's online. Um, but yeah, so we'll see. I'm gonna go see some people, take some photos, maybe make some enemies. Who knows? Otherwise, TF2 stream tomorrow. I want to do this tomorrow night. I gotta message Dylan because Dylan's been wanting to play TF2 for so long. I'll try to schedule it so that he can play too. But it's thank you guys. Over 200,000 subscribers. Holy shit! So we're gonna have a TF2 subscriber special as always. So if you guys like TF2, come play with me. If you don't, just come to the stream, say hi. I mean, I'm gonna be talking with chat, maybe answering questions. Maybe I'll do call-ins. Maybe I'll have some sort of method of like bringing people in to talk. But hey, if you if you're in the TF2 lobby, you can definitely talk. So we'll see what happens. Love you guys. Type 1 to the deep state. If you don't show up tomorrow, have a good weekend. And yeah, toodaloo. No Discord ever.